This episode of the podcast is brought to you by Good Morning, Good Evening Qigong course. And if you guys are unfamiliar with Qigong, Qigong is like an ancient moving meditation practice similar to Tai Chi that they've been practicing in the Orient for 4,000 plus years. And it's put together by a good friend of ours named Tristan Truscott. And he came back from a debilitating back injury and back surgery through the use of Qigong. And it's a way to bring a spiritual meditative practice into your daily life. It takes about 10 minutes in the morning, 10 minutes in the evening, and it helps to build your life force energy. It helps to wake you up and restore your cells. You can really feel it when you're doing it too. It's quite amazing how it affects the body. It's a great way to balance yourself and to prevent negative energy and people's drama and people's emotions from affecting your life force. It's really an awesome practice, and I do it every single day. So that'll be available here, and we're also brought to you by this really unique pyramid that our good friend Ken Rolla, who's been on the show a couple times, has put together this thing called the Rest Shield. It's like this golden pyramid that he uses some really interesting technologies in this thing. It's a scalar wave technology, and you plug it into the wall and it emits a field around the pyramid itself for about 20 feet, and you plug it into a regular power outlet. And you use it while you sleep, or you use it anywhere in your house that has high EMF. And it helps to reduce or eliminate jet lag. It relaxes the body, reduces the effects of EMF pollution, helps to improve performance during waking hours. It's a really cool item, and we've been using it for a little while now, and I really, really like it. And so it's available, and Ken has been nice enough to put a coupon code called Extreme Health for 10% off, valid through February 28th, 2017. But I would highly recommend looking into this thing. We're big fans of it. We've linked to the 2 shows we've done with Ken. It's called the Rest Shield using scalar technology. So I'd highly recommend that. Both the Rest Shield and the Qigong program will be available at extremehealthradio.com/508, and they're both available in our store as well. All right, thanks everybody for joining us here. Happy Friday, everybody. This is awesome. I love Fridays. You may not be listening to this on a Friday, but there's something special about Fridays, isn't there? I don't know what it is. Something in the air. Something that makes you feel good. I just love Fridays. Fridays are a great day. Today we've got a really great guest. It's going to be a lot of fun. I'm really fascinated by this topic, and we've got Leanne Venier on the show, and we're going to be talking with her about color, frequency, light, and how all of those play a role in our health. So it's going to be really interesting. Ever since episode 466, I think it was, with Dr. Jack Cruz, I've really, really been studying and getting into using light in a therapeutic way to not only prevent disease, but just help you feel good. And really, really thinking to myself that, is it possible that all of our diseases in our modern culture, all of the issues and health problems that we're having is a result of lack of exposure to good light and too much exposure to harmful light? So I'm starting to think that. So Leanne is going to be awesome to talk to, and I'm really excited to get some myths debunked and to talk about her work with light and what she's seen with people. It's going to be a really great show. For those who don't know, we do broadcast 3 days a week on Monday, Tuesday, and Friday. If you want to join us, the best way to stay up to date with all of our shows is probably to sign up to our newsletter list. And we send our newsletter out every Monday and every Friday, and you can do that by texting the word Get Healthy to 33444. And that way you'll never miss a show. You'll never miss anything that we have going on. If you text the word Get Healthy to 33444 right there on your cell phone right now, and we will send you a bunch of bonuses, an audio program, as well as an ebook that sells for $20 on Amazon. You can just sign up, and you'll be off and running. So that will be cool. That way we can stay in touch with you more about all the different things that we have going on. So Leanne is an artist. She's a mechanical engineer. She's an expert in the science of color and frequency and light. So her website is catalyticcolor.com. I'll put her website to her link on extremehealthradio.com/508. That way you can get access to it. But catalyticcolor.com is her website. And the cool thing about her is that she left everything about, 10 years ago and went off to Italy and decided that she was going to live in Italy for a while, and decided that that's what she wanted to do, and to leave her career behind in the States. And pretty cool, because I did the same thing many years ago. I took a year off and traveled around the world, spent some money and bought a round-the-world ticket and visited 12 to 15 countries and just had a blast. And so I can resonate with what she did. Let me just go ahead and turn her microphone up and turn the music down. And hopefully, let me just turn her up really quickly. Okay, Leanne, can you hear us okay?
I can barely hear you. We sounded really good on the sound check, but now I can barely hear you.
Okay, hopefully now it's better. Is that correct?
Yes, now that it sounds like you're closer to the microphone. Perfect.
Yeah, I had to switch the background music to off there, so.
Okay, you're competing for bandwidth.
So I was saying before, just on the intro, how cool it was that many years ago you decided to just leave everything and go traveling, and you went to Italy for a while, right?
Yeah, 7 years. Yes,
Wow.
I just packed up, sold everything, and moved me and my 2 cats there.
Wow, how fun is that? So you went to Florence and probably traveled all around.
I did, yeah. I was based in Florence. I had a business there, and I was working there. But yeah, I did a lot of traveling all over Italy. It was fantastic. It felt like being on vacation for 7 years.
Wow, so before that you were a mechanical engineer? Or you were, well, I guess you still are.
Well, yes, you don't ever officially recover from it, but yeah, I'm still technically an engineer. Yeah, mechanical engineer in particular. I used to design submarines for Lockheed.
Oh my goodness. Wow. So what happened? Did you get into light therapy and color therapy when you were in Italy, or was that something that you were starting to get into before you left?
I started studying all kinds of alternative healing modalities while I was living in Italy. That was kind of the other thing that I was spending a lot of my time doing. And there was a lot of ancient healing modalities that are based in color and light. So, yes, the original part of my studies started with the more esoteric elements, the ancient healing modalities, and then I moved into the hard science because I wanted to validate, why does this stuff work, and does it really work, first of all, and then started having all these experiences to validate it and then bringing in the science. So it kind of came about in a backwards way, but yeah, so it did start in Italy probably. But even before that, actually, because while I was still working as an engineer, I took a course on what I call various untapped aspects of the brain. And one of the exercises that we did in that class was the teachers put up all these colored panels just all around the room, and they told us just go stand in front of each one of those panels and stare at it and see what comes up for you. So that was my first experience, because in the process oops, sorry, I have an incoming call. In the process of staring at those different colored panels, sorry.
No problem.
Oh, God.
Technology, right?
Oh, my God. Yes, if you're on the phone and people try to call you, then it starts ringing on Google Hangouts. Anyway, so in the process of staring at each one of those colored panels, I noticed all these different physiological responses coming up in my body, different emotions that were coming up, and that was really the first time I really was aware of how profoundly we're impacted simply by looking at different colors. So that was kind of the original seed.
You know, it's interesting. We have a guest on our show. His name is Adam Bergstrom, and he does a lot of the work with color too. We've spoken with him a little bit about it, but he talks about wearing certain colors like shirts or part of your wardrobe every day. So there's a color for every day of the week. That's interesting.
Well, you can choose to wear certain colors to elicit certain responses in yourself. I mean, I personally wouldn't want to have the same color per day. I mean, I choose my colors based on how I'm feeling, because we actually are drawn to certain colors when we're deficient in those color energies. Mm-hmm. So if you are conscious of that and you choose the colors to wear on your body or in your environment, you can actually support your health that way. And you can also enhance whatever things you want to be doing that day. For example, I use the example of red often because it's a lot of people are aware of it as being a power color, an energizing color. But you can actually wear red and then be more assertive. You feel more assertive, and people perceive you as being more assertive, self-confident. It ties in with the alpha color in nature. You know, alpha males have a predominance of red in their skin. So when you wear the red color in your clothing, it gives the perception to others that you're very self-confident. And it's very good for, you know, if you have an important meeting or something like that. And they've actually done scientific research where sports teams that have red uniforms actually win more often than sports teams that wear blue.
So that's interesting.
Really relevant. So, because it does have that. Oh, go ahead.
No, that's also kind of known as the old Donald Trump red power tie, right? Like,
yes. Yeah, and that totally correlates with his persona. And so Obama, you will notice if you ever Google photos of him, he always wore a blue suit and a blue tie. And very rarely would he wear a red tie.
Yeah, I've noticed that.
Yeah, and only in cases where he wanted to be in that assertive authoritarian position, you know, like I'm going into an important negotiation. But for the most part, he wanted to be conveyed with the sense of, you know, what's the trust, confidence, that sort of thing, the things that the color blue will instill in people that are viewing it. The same reason that big corporations will always use blue in their logos, like Hewlett-Packard, American Express, lots and lots of them, all the airlines for the most part, because they know that color blue gives a sense of, you know, confidence, that they're steadfastness, they're going to be around for a long time, they're very reliable, all of those things.
Yeah, it's interesting. I've noticed that on websites too. A lot of times they'll have a blue backdrop because the person will feel more inclined to purchase something, or, you know, they'll feel...
Well, yeah. There's a huge amount of research that's gone into it in internet marketing, you know, because of that, because they know the psychology of color, and they understand how people perceive color and what it influences them to do. So, for example, you know, if you want to convey a sense of trust and authority, like you're not authoritarian, but authority, like you are an authority on a subject, you using blue with your, you know, product or whatever it is will give that sense of trust and confidence to the viewer. Whereas red may stimulate more of a fight or flight response, where they'll be like, oh, I don't know if I should trust this. Should I go there? Like, is there danger?
Right. I wonder why that is. Do we have any idea why the human brain and the human psyche responds that way?
Well, I correlate it with the chakra system, ancient healing modalities, so the chakra system, 5-element system, things like that, which is all tied in with how energies flow through our bodies. So, for example, the first chakra, the root chakra, is all about survival. It's about fight or flight. It's basically about doing whatever you need to do to survive in the world. So whether that is related to home, money, finances, that sort of thing, security, all of that ties in with why we respond to red in this way, so that all danger signs, warning signs, stop signs, things like that are always red, because it catches your attention. It puts you immediately into that fight or flight mode. And this, again, has been scientifically proven. It increases heart rate, increases blood flow. It gets you ready to run. So just looking at that color. Yeah. So, you know, from a physiological standpoint, it is measurable. And if you think of it from the chakra system, in the 5 elements, the fire element, again, the same thing. It's all about, you know, energy, energized, you know, go, go, go.
Yeah, it's interesting.
So it's survival.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it would make sense, because if you think about red and its effect on people, you look at, like, you know, you think danger, you think stop, and I mean, I guess that makes sense, because if you were to cut someone, that's obviously a dangerous situation. Someone could be in peril, and red is the color of blood when it's exposed to oxygen,
exactly.
And so that makes a lot of sense. But
yeah. Anyway, but yeah, there are a lot of other correlations too with the other colors as well, tying in with that same thing. So how we perceive colors, you know, it's intimately tied with the energies that flow through our bodies. If you understand meridians, and do you know what meridians are?
Yeah, we've talked about them quite extensively on our show, but yeah, feel free to expound. Okay, so in the 5-element system, you know, I used to be a practicing acupuncturist and then Shiatsu practitioner. I did that after I came back from Italy. And
five elements is all about how these energies, that the meridians that flow through our bodies, are connected with different emotions, and they're also connected with different colors. So you can actually use color as a diagnostic. So whichever color somebody's drawn to can tell you or can give you leading clues as to where they're out of balance, both physically and, emotionally, psychologically.
That is fascinating. If someone were to ask me my favorite color, I'd probably say like a sunfire red or orange.
Sunfire red or orange. Okay, is that is that a long-standing favorite color, or is this just recent?
Probably within the last 20 years, I'd say.
Okay, so quite a while. So
Yeah.
That's kind of like your go-to color. That's the same thing for me. Do you tend to like doing a lot of different things, staying busy, being very active?
Completely.
Completely,
Totally.
yes?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
So typically people that are very high energy people, very driven, doing a lot of things, like and thrive in that high energy state. Whereas some people, they freak out if they have too much stuff going on. They're not good at managing a lot of things. They don't like to have to manage a lot of things. They don't usually like red. People that thrive in that kind of high energy environment do like red, because I call it your battery recharge color, like your go-to battery recharge color. So it's kind of what sustains your battery constantly. It's like that constant energy source coming in, that high level energy red. So you tend to want to have red in your environment, where you'll choose accessories for your home or computer or things like that in red. Does that resonate?
Oh, yeah, completely. I love that color so much.
Yeah. But on the converse, sometimes, like even high energy people like us, if we've got too much going on and it's like there's like, it's a little bit overwhelming, those are the kind of times when you may feel more drawn to blue or teal or indigo or, violet. But any of the soothing, calming, sedating colors, or craving being around the water, for example, where you need to like recharge, but in a calmer environment.
Now, what would be like, I guess you could come up with all of this for every color, because, there's purple, there's violet, there's pink. I guess each color has her own frequency and thing, right?
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So basically, a good, easy rule of thumb is like red, orange, and yellow are stimulating colors. So red is the most stimulating. Orange is a combination of red and yellow. So it's less stimulating than red and more stimulating than yellow. Yellow is the least stimulating of the warming colors. Then you go to green. So these are the colors of the rainbow also. Red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet. Green is in the middle, so it's a neutral energy color. It's neither stimulating nor sedating. Unless you mix green with some yellow, then it will be slightly energizing. Or if you mix green with some blue, then it will be slightly sedating, like teal. And then blue, indigo, and violet are the calming, sedating colors. So blue is, calming. Indigo is more calming and like sedating. And again, these all depend on how dark they are and that sort of thing, and how pale, like if you put more white or you put more black into them. And then violet is the most. And those are also the colors of the chakras, by the way.
So interesting. When at night in the evening, I've got one of those, that program called Flux. I'm sure you're familiar with that. So I'll have that on. Let me look at my settings really quickly here. When I turn that on at night, at sunset, it'll go to 1200 Kelvin. Or wait, is that right? Yeah, 1200 Kelvin. The ember setting, and I had to change the settings on my computer to do that, to get it to go that orange or that red. So sometimes I'll be working in the evening, and I'll have it on that setting, that color setting. And if I have to do something like, let's say I'm doing something in Photoshop where I need to see a color, I'll turn it off. But what I'll do is I'll put on my orange glasses, and I'll turn it back to blue for a couple minutes so I can see the color. But I find that is super, super, super stimulating. That blue.
Stimulating, yes. Yeah, it is.
Which is kind of weird, because you were just saying that blue is not stimulating, but I guess it depends, right?
Well, it's stimulating in the sense that it's shutting off melatonin production. It's not at nighttime, our bodies start producing melatonin, right? Because we're supposed to get sleepy.
Mm-hmm.
So when you see blue, which corresponds to the color of the blue sky. Okay, so all of this, everything I talk about always ties in with evolution.
Uh-huh.
So when you're out in the middle of the day and you see the blue sky, that tells your body it's the middle of the day, be wide awake. So it shuts off melatonin. So for that reason, it makes you more alert, because if you were starting to get sleepy and your body was producing, cranking out melatonin, as soon as you see that blue light, your body goes, oh, wait a minute, I'm in the middle of the day now, so I need to be wide awake. So that will wake you up very quickly. So that's why people will have insomnia at nighttime, if they're using their iPads or tablets or whatever and reading from the screen that's illuminated, and they're getting all that blue light, unless they have a blue light blocker. I mean, I started lecturing about this stuff years ago, before anybody even heard about anything about the problem with these the LED screens.
Right.
So in that regard, but it's like, and it's the same way that if you go out in the middle of the day, you're going to be awake. But when you get blue light, it's not stimulating by itself. It's not an energizing color. It's actually a calming color, if that makes sense. So you don't get, it's not like drinking a cup of coffee. So the color red is analogous to drinking coffee. So it has the same effect. It stimulates the fight or flight. It stimulates that sympathetic nervous response in the body, just like caffeine does, just like cocaine, amphetamines. All of those things stimulate the sympathetic nervous response, whereas blue stimulates parasympathetic. So it does calm you down. It actually lowers stress levels and that sort of thing. But when you see blue at night, it makes you feel more energized than you should be, because you should be getting calmer and quieter.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, because it just makes a lot of sense. The sky is dark at night, the blue goes away.
Right.
The full spectrum light from the sun, there's none of that left. So I'm curious, with blue light, like a lot of people's alarm clocks, in their room are blue. If someone gets up if someone gets up in the middle of the night and they just happen to catch a glimpse, if their eye just goes over to and see what time it is that enough light to stimulate maybe being able to go back to sleep?
It depends on how bright the blue light is. If they have it set on a fairly low setting, it's not good no matter what, because any amount of photons that go into your eye that are color at night will have that melatonin inhibitory effect. But there is like a certain threshold where it's like it has very little effect. But when you're looking at a tablet that's right in front of your face, that's going to have like a huge amount of blue light. So but any type of light at night actually has an inhibitory effect to some degree, except light, like red light, doesn't have that effect, because it doesn't shut off that melatonin production. So if you want to have an alarm clock with a light on it, then I would say use one with a red readout instead of blue. Okay,
that makes sense. Now, what do you do? Is there an app that you can get that makes the screen even more red than that Flux program?
Well, Flux, basically what Flux is doing is it's cutting out, and that was another thing, like when I started lecturing about all this stuff, most people hadn't heard about Flux yet. And then, people watching my videos, like, oh, there's this amazing thing. But what they're doing is they're cutting out most of the blue and green wavelengths, so that you're not getting that melatonin shutoff signal, without adversely affecting the look of the screen, which is a problem with all the apps, or at least all the ones that I've seen so far. I keep checking every once in a while for like phone and tablet. The apps that are designed for phone and tablet, they're not focused on just cutting out the blue. What they do is shift everything to red, so that all of your blacks end up looking like this unattractive reddish brown. So it distorts the colors to the point that it doesn't. To me, I'm very color sensitive. I'm kind of the color expert, so I don't like the way that they make my screen look. So that's what's happening. But you have a full range of adjustment in Flux where you can change that setting. But it sounds like you've already gone in and done that. What do you want to go more into red? Because if it's cutting out all of the blue and green. Those are mainly the problem wavelengths.
Well, I guess for me now, I'm really starting to think about the work that you do and color and light in general in terms of our health. And right now, I still do a lot of work at night, and I'm trying to wean off of that. And so, I guess what I want to know or, understand is there a way to do that kind of work, and have it not be damaging to my eyes or to my system or to anything like that?
Well, I do the same thing. I often work until 10 o'clock. 10 o'clock is my hard shut-off time. I make myself get off the computer, but because I'm using flux, I'm not getting bombarded with blue light. And I make sure that within at least a couple hours of going to bed, I no longer even have any of my blue daylight bulbs turned on in the house, which have a lot of blue in them. So, like in my bathroom, I have two different sets of lights. I've got the lights over my mirror that are daylight bulbs, and then I've got a light behind, the vanity area, or like behind where I would be standing. That's got a reddish warm LED bulb in there. So at night, I turn on that reddish bulb when I need to use the restroom, and I don't use the daylight bulbs anymore because that will there's so much blue in those that it will immediately shut off melatonin production.
Now I've heard in terms of those lights, we did a show with a guy, from a company called Low Blue Lights, I think, and he was saying that that when the light, it doesn't necessarily have to hit your eyes. Like if you're walking around your apartment or home and you have short sleeves and shorts on,
yes.
the light hitting the skin is still an issue. Is that correct?
Yeah.
You think?
Yes. So that's why wearing orange glasses won't completely protect you from the blue light effect. Because we do have photoreceptors in our cells, so you can we can sense when it's daylight through our skin.
Yeah, that's interesting because that would mean that you would have to wear long pants and long sleeves inside. In the evening, what I do is I just basically turn all the lights off. But I've been thinking about getting some of those orange bulbs. Do you think those are good?
Well, in my bedroom, like I have an RGB bulb. I don't get the really expensive Philips Hue one because you don't need to, because there are $10 versions of those on Amazon now that are, if all you need to do is to be able to change the color, and they have a remote control.
Oh wow!
So if I need, I've got in my bedside lamp, and I have it set to red, and then I've got Himalayan salt lamps, which I like even more. So I really don't even use the bedside lamp unless I need more illumination, but I just use my Himalayan salt lamps because those give off a really nice reddish, orange, yellow glow, like it's most pinky peach kind of thing.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Soothing.
Yeah, so those are really nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you can get those really inexpensively. I mean, at Home Goods is a store where I've bought a few of them. Or even online. I personally like to pick out my own. I like to see it because they do have different feels and they have different shapes, and some have really cool striations. So kind of nice when you can go pick your own. But
yeah, that would be a good idea. Put a bunch of those orange or those Himalayan salt lamps all around your house in the evening. That would be really cool.
And they're really cool looking. Plus they feel really nice. So and they're not going to shut off melatonin production.
That is interesting. Now, I'm sure there's some blue light getting through there. Do you think?
No, well, I don't think so because I mean, it's using the ones that I have like with the incandescent bulb in them, the old ones, and incandescent bulbs have a predominance of red, orange, and yellow wavelengths anyway.
Okay.
So there's only a tiny, tiny amount of blue light that those things emit in the first place.
Interesting,
and
yeah.
any of that would be filtered out by coming through the salt, which is colored pink.
And the salt's apparently good for negative ions and apparently EMF. I don't know anything about that, but that's just what I've heard. But
I've heard that too. I haven't ever actually seen any science on it, so I don't propagate that. But I know that I like them in my room, and they do absorb humidity out of the air because if it's really humid and I have my windows open, I'll get a pool. I have to put them on plates because they'll actually suck humidity out of the air, and you end up with a pool of water underneath them.
Oh, no way. That's interesting. I was listening to your talk. For those that haven't heard it or watched it yet, you gave a really great talk at the Bulletproof Conference, so you can search for that on YouTube or on your YouTube channel. You have it on there.
Right.
I was thinking about, because you mentioned something really cool in that talk, and I thought about something else that would be like, it seems like it would be such an amazing product. And you were mentioning how in Europe they're doing these LED lights that sort of are adjustable. So as the day sort of progresses, it turns more and more red. And then I thought, what if they had glasses? Because, we wear those orange glasses, and I think you do too. But what if they had glasses that you could wear that eventually, like, were smart glasses that kind of timed it with the sun, kind of like Flux, how it does that automatically? Like, what if you had glasses that did that? That would be really cool.
But keep in mind that your skin is still going to be aware of, like, the wavelengths that are around it. So if you're under artificial light, you're still going to be stimulated that way. I'm more like, I actually don't wear orange glasses. I have some that were sent to me by somebody, but I don't wear them. I don't want to have something sitting on my face or block. I feel like it blocks me from the world to have something in front of my eyes.
Oh, interesting.
So I don't like it because of the desensitizing effect. Plus, I'd rather just change the lights in my house to not have a lot of blue in them, and then I'm not going to be stimulated. So I want to be as close to, nature as possible, what's actually happening outdoors. And, when when you're camping and you have a fire at night, that never stimulates you. It never keeps you awake, right? Because it's the same thing that happens at dawn and at dusk. We get this predominance of red, orange, and yellow wavelengths that come through the atmosphere. That's why sunrise and sunset are red. You see, red sky. Because the shorter blue and green wavelengths don't come through until the sun gets higher in the sky. The same thing with the UV. The UVA and UVB are shorter than blue, and those also come through until the sun gets higher up in the sky.
This whole light thing is so fascinating. There was a guy on our show a while back who talked about, like, what keeps us alive, and you kind of alluded to this in your talk, and he was saying what keeps us alive is the burst of biophotonic light that happens when cells die. So a cell will die, and then there's a burst of some sort of light that gets emitted from the cell, and then the living cells that are still alive feed off of that light in order for us to continue to exist. I thought that was super interesting, but you were talking about in your lecture kind of the same thing, where we actually are light beings, right? Like we emit a certain frequency of light, and light's all inside of us, and it's so fascinating.
Yeah. And that all stems from the work of Dr. Fritz Albert Popp in Germany. He's a biophysicist who in 1972 actually created the first machine that was able to measure and record that we actually do emit light. Our DNA emits light. So a healthy being, a living being, is always giving off light. We take in light, we store it, we use it for cellular processes, cellular communication, and then we also give off light. So, and now they have, as of 2009, they have a CCD camera that was developed at Kyoto University in Japan, and that can actually photograph these individual photon emissions that are coming from a living body, whether it's a human being or a plant or anything like that. So you can actually now see the actual photons, this light that's being given off by our cells, essentially.
So what do you think is going on with our culture, cancer? Because I know you have a couple lectures on cancer that on YouTube I haven't had a chance to listen to yet. But I'm curious your take, because there's a light there's light that's being emitted from our own bodies, and then there's light, external light, which is any other light, the sun, lights in our home. And it seems as if there needs to be some sort of connection, like a lock and key kind of a deal, where these things interact with each other in a healthy way. So what are your thoughts about, disease process and what's going on in the world today with light?
All the diseases are because people are avoiding sunlight. Sunlight, we evolved to live and thrive under sunlight. Sunlight is the source of all light. That's where it comes from. We're not generating the light from within our bodies. We have to take it in somewhere. We're just like plants in that regard. So if you think of a plant, you can't take the plant and put it into a dark room and keep it in there, and it's going to die very quickly. It's the same thing with humans. I mean, we're getting artificial light, and we're getting some wavelengths through the artificial light, but it doesn't include everything that sunlight provides, and it doesn't include. I mean, there's other things that we get by being out from underneath the sunlight, like life force energy and all of the healing wavelengths that are found in sunlight. So it's not just UVA and UVB, which actually are very good for us. They're not, everybody's like terrified of UV light or
right.
radiation. Technically, but we do need them. We need all of those wavelengths. As we need red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet, we need near infrared, mid infrared, and far infrared.
Uh-huh.
So our body, evolved to live under all of those wavelengths. And so, for example, there's a research study that came out recently that they studied the effects of shining red light onto cells and then following it with UVA. Toxic dosages of UVA and then non-toxic doses of UVA. Toxic meaning that in excess. So we do need UVA for our bodies, but when you get too much of it, then it becomes bad for us. It can harm us. But our bodies actually evolved in a way that we have this built-in protective mechanism, because when you get red light shining on your cells before you get exposed to UVA, the red light actually protects the telomeres. It protects the DNA. It protects the cells themselves from getting damaged by the UVA. So, and telomeres are the protective end caps on DNA. Have you heard of those?
Yeah, we've done a few shows on that. It's fascinating stuff.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you know that when your telomeres shorten really quickly, that means accelerated aging. It's a bad thing. You want your telomeres to last a nice long time. So when you get too much UVA to the point that it's damaging, it really increases the rate of telomere shortening. So photoaging, all of that sort of thing, that increases the rate of cellular death. So, but when you shine red light on those same cells before you expose them to UVA, the red light creates this, they absorb those wavelengths, and it creates this almost protective shield. So you don't get the same effect from the UVA. You don't get the telomere shortening that you would if you don't expose the cells to red light beforehand. And like I tie everything in with evolution. The reason for that, I believe the reason for it is because, back in the caveman day when we were evolving, people would go out and hunt and fish in the early morning, at dawn and at dusk. Those are the times when the animals are out, at dawn. So if you're out early in the morning and hunting and fishing, and you're getting all those red wavelengths on your body, and then you're out for the rest of the day under the sun, you didn't have clothing back then. They had these little loincloths. They were right. If they even were wearing those at all, they probably weren't. That's probably a Hollywood thing. But but they're probably out romping around naked. They've got their skin fully exposed, but because they got the red wavelengths in the morning on their skin, they weren't getting skin cancer. And presumably.
So how does this work in terms of, like, let's say someone loves to go to the beach or go work out in the outside or be outside all day. So when you're talking about exposing the cells to red light prior to being exposed to UVA or blue light, does that, so like if I had a red light that I was exposing, let's say, my stomach to or something, or my face, does that affect the telomeres and the ability for the cells in the entire body to be able to deal with that blue light later?
Well, it will definitely affect where you're shining the light. There are systemic effects, like what I've been finding with my lights, people telling me, sending me reports and testimonials about using my lights, that they're having these systemic changes in their body, these systemic healing effects that are happening. So if they're using the light on one part of their body, they're having healing effects in the other part. I haven't done any research particularly with shining it on the body in the morning and then going out under sunlight. But I do know a friend of mine who's a scientist and a quantum mechanicist. I was telling him about the study. He's very interested in the work that I've been doing in my research. And he told me, he's an avid bicyclist, and he said that totally correlates with his own experience, because he said when he goes out and he starts cycling in the early morning when it's, dawn and dusk, not dawn and dusk at the same time, but at dawn, with the red wavelengths, he said he can be out all day riding around and he won't get a sunburn. when he does that first, when he's out in the early day. But if he only goes out in the middle of the day, he's much more sensitive to the sun, like the burning aspect of it.
Really?
So, yeah, it's something to experiment with for sure.
That's interesting.
I'll probably start doing it. But there definitely are systemic effects. I'm getting reports back, like lots of them. I've noticed that myself also, like if I treat a part of my body, like if I've worked out, and I've done experiments where I work out and I'll be sore on both sides of the body, but I only treat one side, and the other side by the next morning, the pain on both sides will be gone. And my friend, who's the director of hematopathology at University of Missouri, he started powerlifting, and he's been using one of my lights, and I asked him to do the same experiment, so he's been doing the same thing as well, and he says, sure enough, like he uses the light on one side of his body where it's really sore, and that soreness will immediately go away on the one side, and within, I don't know, about 8 hours, something like that, the pain on the other side will go away as well.
That is so interesting. It's so fascinating.
And it ties in again with the meridians. So because we do use these energy channels to transmit light, they transmit energy and light.
So if someone were to, you've heard of this, I'm sure, the act of sun gazing. Mm-hmm. Have you heard about that? So when someone is sun gazing and they're looking at the sun as it's dropping down on the horizon, what's going on? Is that damaging? Or what's going on in their body, do you think?
I've only heard of doing it at dawn in the morning, but never when the sun is fully up in the sky, when it's emitting a lot of blue and UV. Mm-hmm. When you're doing it and you're gazing at the sun and you're getting more red, orange, and yellow wavelengths. I haven't personally done it, but I've read, they've been doing that in ancient cultures for a very long time. Mm-hmm. I do know that people using my lights lots of people have reported their eyesight improving from using the red light on their eyes, like actually shining it right in their eyes with their eyes open. A number of them have reported clearer vision, like better vision, clearer, brighter vision. One guy who he had to wear his sunglasses all the time. Like he could never go outside because he'd get an instant splitting headache because his eyes were so hypersensitive to sunlight. And he's been like that for as long as he can remember. Wow. And within 3 weeks of using the light, and he wasn't trying to treat his eyes, he was actually just trying to treat his face. And but he stopped having to wear sunglasses during the day. His hypersensitivity went away. And I hadn't even noticed that myself, but I had the exact same thing happen. But I was less aware of the fact that it happened after the fact that I was using my light on my face. And anyway, but it does seem to be doing that. It does seem to be having like these healing effects on the eyes. And they have been doing research with red and near infrared for treating macular degeneration. So it makes sense.
That's interesting. Do you wear sunglasses?
I used to be a slave to them. I couldn't go outside even on a cloudy day. But now I can go outside and my eyes don't, sometimes I do. If I'm going, if I'm riding my scooter, I'm using them. I have to wear them because I want to protect my eyes from the wind. But I don't need them like I used to anymore. That's
interesting. I've had the same experience for the last probably 6 months or so. I've just ditched the sunglasses altogether. And one of the things I found is that when I go outside, if I start out with my sunglasses on, it's almost impossible to take them off. But if I start out with no sunglasses, I adapt pretty quickly.
Oh, that's good. Yeah. So, and I mean, we do get a lot of benefits from getting sunlight shining into our eyes, obviously.
Now, I wanted to ask you about... Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say in the whole melatonin thing. So another thing one really important thing about blue light is because, I noticed after my first talks where I was talking about, you need to be aware of the screens and stuff and blue light and, make sure you don't get it at night. But then everybody kind of latched onto that aspect and they didn't realize but you do need to get blue light during the day. It's vitally important because if you don't get blue light during the day, it doesn't set your circadian rhythm. So your body never really knows what time of day it is, and you need the blue light. It actually, if you get blue light during the day, it increases your melatonin production at night, and it's like immediate. I mean, you can be, have your circadian rhythm completely out of whack, and if you get blue light during the day, you go outside and get, a good amount of blue light while you're outdoors, or you can use a blue light therapy device. Those reset your circadian rhythm really quickly because you're getting like this, bombarded with blue light, and your body's like, oh, I know exactly what time it is now. Mm-hmm. And then that evening, as soon as it starts hitting dusk, you start getting sleepy, even if you hadn't gotten sleepy, until 2 or 3 in the morning forever before that.
So by using some of these principles, you could probably really make a pretty good gain on things like jet lag, right?
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, I'm going to be going to Europe in a month or so, and I'm bringing my portable blue light therapy device with me.
Oh wow! And then you could actually use it. I wonder if it would be good. Well, your light. I want to talk about your light in a little while, but your red light, your LED light. I wonder if that would be good to shine. Like if you're flying somewhere. I mean, obviously people would think you're crazy because you got this big light and you probably have to plug it in. But if you could you shine that on yourself while you're during the daytime of the place that you're going to be going? Or, I'm sorry, during the nighttime of the place that you're going to be flying to?
Possibly, because I hadn't really thought about that. But blue light definitely tells your body when it's the daytime. But the other thing about this is another thing. I've had all these people reporting to me. I actually discovered it accidentally myself. When you lay the light on your chest, for some people it works equally as well on the upper back, but most people it's like on the upper chest. It makes you super sleepy really, really fast, like within about 5 minutes. And I noticed that because I watch streaming video using Flux on my computer in my bedroom at night. Mm-hmm. And then that's kind of when I'll do any light therapy that I need because I don't like just doing one thing. I like multitasking. So I can be lying there and doing light therapy while I'm watching, some show. And the first time I did it and I laid it on my chest, I was wide awake before that. I was not sleepy at all. And it was probably 11 o'clock or something. I never go to bed that early. And I zonked out, and I woke up about half an hour later, and I'm like, whoa, what happened? Because I could tell how far into the show I'd missed,
Right.
And I was like, wow, was that from the light? Because I was not anywhere close to sleepy before I did that. So then I tested it several more times, and sure enough, every single time it had that effect on me. So when I did my training videos for my lights, I told people, I said, I don't know if this is universal or if this is just me, but, give it a try and see if it works for you as well. So I had so many people that reported back the exact same thing. It's like, I haven't slept that well in so many years. I've had multiple people that have told me that. Wow. And then just 2 days ago, I found a research study that actually says that, they did shining light on the front of the body, red light, and it had this deep sleep induction effect. So it was like the first research study that I'd seen, and I just came across it again. Accidentally, I was looking for something completely different and came across that. I'm like, oh, here's science that validates it.
That's interesting. Have you looked into the pineal gland and light? Do you know how light affects the pineal gland?
Well, yeah. Again, that's the blue light photoreceptors in the eyes. I call them blue light photoreceptors because that's just an easy way to call them. They're sensitive to a range of wavelengths. In the blue range up into the green range. Okay. So they're attuned to those wavelengths. So as soon as your eye, and they will only absorb those wavelengths. So when they absorb those wavelengths, it sends a message immediately to your pineal gland, which then, communicates with the suprachiasmatic nucleus, the SCN, which is basically your circadian clock, and that tells it. It's like, it's never just, one thing in the body. It's like a cascade mechanism that happens. So it's the blue light comes in, there's a photoreceptor that takes in that light, then it has this communication with other things. It's the same thing with the mitochondrial stimulation with red and near infrared. It's not the mitochondria that are taking in the light itself. It's the cytochrome C oxidase, the photoreceptors in the cells, that then create this cascade mechanism that then stimulate the mitochondria to create ATP energy, adenosine triphosphate in the cells. So, but basically it's just the light comes in, the cells absorb it, and then they use it to increase energy.
It's so fast. This light is it's blowing my mind how much of an impact it has on our health and how little people know about it. I think that's what's so fascinating, because you look at a lot of the studies, like they'll do studies, and you're probably aware of these, down in Australia, and they'll say, well, the ozone layer is depleted and the amount of people that get skin cancer in Australia is X%, and that's X percent more than Americans, and this because they're in the sun all day. But then you realize, you look deeper into the study and you see, wow, the people that they actually tested, they were people that were primarily office workers and people who didn't go in the sun. You know? Right. Bizarre.
And there has been a study, at least one study, where they actually studied the difference of the melatonin. So melatonin is also a really important antioxidant in the body. It's not only a very important hormone, it's an important antioxidant. Mm-hmm. So it actually prevents all of this oxidative stress that would be happening in our bodies. But anyway, so they did a study where they took office workers and compared them to outdoor workers, and they found that people that work in offices are much more susceptible to cancer or get cancer more often because they're not getting daylight. Whereas outdoor workers, people that are working outdoors under the sun all the time, have a much lower incidence of melanoma.
Isn't that fascinating?
There are so many studies now. It's not just these few. There are hundreds of them that have now proven that sunlight is something necessary. It's a necessary nutrient for our bodies. There was a 20-year study done in Sweden on 30,000 women, and they were analyzing the effects of sunlight and avoidance of sunlight. Mm-hmm. So they analyzed all these women and over the course of 20 years and found that there was a direct inverse correlation. The less sunshine that these women got during the summer months, because obviously in Sweden you don't get in the winter, but that's true on most of the planet. So, well, not most of the planet, but a good percentage of the planet. So you need to get sunshine when the sun is shining, essentially. And then your body produces all these nutrients like vitamin D. It will produce an excess amount of vitamin D that then gets used up during the winter months when there's no sunshine. So in this study, they found that the women, the less sunshine they got during the summer months, the more likely they were to die of anything. Like, not likely to die, that they actually did die. So they were actually tracking people, their illnesses and deaths. So disease and death went, directly correlated to reduction of sunshine exposure meant direct increase in probability that you're going to die from any cause. So it was like all-cause mortality.
Yeah. Wow.
Not just cancer. And there have been tons of studies that have linked every single type of cancer with avoidance of sunshine.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I find it fascinating because when you're exposed to the sun, your body creates melatonin later on in the evening, like you said. And melatonin, a lot of people think it's just a sleep hormone, but people use it IV melatonin, super high doses for like 60 milligrams, for people with cancer. And so, and then also vitamin D has over, I think something like 3,000 different metabolic functions in the body, and that gets created when you're in the sun. And so.
Exactly. And vitamin D is a hormone, which a lot of people don't know. It's actually not a vitamin. It's a hormone that's extremely important. It's tied in, like you said, with pretty much every cellular process in the body. Mm-hmm. Just like melatonin is extremely important. So when you're avoiding sunshine, you're going to have low melatonin levels and you're going to have low vitamin D levels, which means you're probably going to have some kind of disease, like at an early age too, where people that are getting, heart disease, all sorts of things. I mean, not just cancer. There's just a ton of them. I mean, even depression and anxiety are related to avoidance of sunshine. And they've proven in multiple studies that going out and getting sunshine is a much stronger healing effect for depression and anxiety than any antidepressant drug on the market.
Wow.
Has a much stronger effect.
It's fascinating. It's really fascinating because if you think about the lack of full spectrum lighting in the middle of the midday sun is affecting us in these ways, then, if it's affecting us in those ways, the lack of that, then it would make total sense that you could use light and vibration, light and vibration to heal too. So. Right.
Because it's like, especially, and this is where I've been seeing these amazing, like really, really rapid healing effects. People like with lifelong, joint pain and, pain in their bodies and osteoarthritis and neck pain and all kinds of things that they've had for decades. And one treatment with the light is getting rid of it. not exaggerating. I mean, these are like actual reports, you know, and I tell people do 20 minutes with my particular lights for anything that's deep in the body, like anything that they have to go through bone or deep muscle. But 20-minute treatment and that kind of, you know, effect. And for me, I believe it's because people are so deficient in these wavelengths that they're just like their body's starving. And then you give it what it needs. There's other stuff in my lights too. I have these, you know, my custom formulations that kind of put in some special energy and other things like that. But you know, in addition to the wavelengths, but it's like they're so deficient, and all of this stuff is found in sunlight. And if people were just going out and getting sunshine every day, you know, like the life force energy that I was talking about, it's like what their scientists are trying to tap into in the 0 point field, you know, this life force energy, that the space between the electrons, they want to be able to use that because it's this infinite source of energy as a fuel source. And whether they've actually, when they're getting close, I don't know if it's actually true. Supposedly somebody had kind of figured it out. But anyway, so you can actually absorb that energy from when you go out under sunshine, and you can kind of see it. Have you ever looked up into the sky and not directly into the sun, but at the, you know, the blue part of the sky? And if you let your eyes go slightly out of focus, you can see all these little squiggly bits of light.
Oh, yeah.
Have you seen those?
Yeah, I definitely, yeah.
So that's prana, or, you know, chi or ki or whatever you want to call it, but it's basically all means the same thing. It's this life force energy. So you need that. And the more, when you're out in nature, you get a lot of it, because when you're surrounded by a lot of trees, when there's running water, there's more of it. And it's the same thing like when you tap into flow state. I teach about the, you know, how to get into flow state too. And basically you're kind of tapping into that. You're accessing some of that flow of energy, and it's coming through you, and that's why you feel so energized, and you're not depleting your own resources, your own battery reserve. You're kind of like using that life force energy. There are all sorts of ways that it can be used. Yeah,
so interesting. You know, because when you think about it, when we consume food, when we consume water, and when we consume light, you know, light, people don't realize light is almost like an essential nutrient. It's like information. Right. And same with water and food. It's just a storage space of information that needs to come into the body. And so when you deprive your body of that information, whether it's through food or through water or through light, you know, it's not going to go well for you.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what I started, you know, when I started lecturing about this, I actually did make the analogy of, you know, if you think of sunshine as a multivitamin, so you get everything you get the full spectrum multivitamin effect when you go out under sunshine. Sometimes, if your body's out of balance, you may only need one certain nutrient, or like a smaller spectrum of those nutrients. So if you're catching a cold, you may be craving, you know, oranges, because your body knows that there's a lot of vitamin C, which we do know helps your body fight a cold, helps boost the immune response. And so you may see an orange and be like, oh my God, I have to eat that orange. Like your body just knows. So you crave that orange. It's the same way that we crave colors. When we're out of balance, we may crave a certain color that our body's deficient in that will help us get back into balance. So that's why, like, you might go out, you know, somewhere and you're shopping, and everything you see is like, oh my God, I love that green. I love that green over there. I love that green. I've got to buy that green. I've got to get that green shirt, or whatever color it is. And it's often a color that people aren't normally drawn to when they become aware of it. It's like, you know, I don't normally like green, but everything green looks really good to me today. And then they're buying all this green. You know, I've had that experience myself a few times, that I know, like, you know, if I'm craving certain colors and I have to buy new bath towels in these colors and things in my environment, it's usually because, you know, I'm out of balance and I'm deficient and I'm craving those colors, which is something that was how I got into flow in my painting process. So whenever I was craving a certain color, as long as I started painting with that color, I would immediately get in flow state. I mean, it was just like super fast. If I started painting with a color that I wasn't craving that day, the flow process took a lot longer.
Wow. Do you think that would be possible for people to, if they want to be a writer or write books and things? Do you think this could help them?
Oh yeah, definitely. I tell people all the time, it's like you can get like different fabric swatches, or little sheets of silk or something with vibrant. You want something with nice vibrant color that you want to look at, or even the screensavers. Like I have free healing color screensavers for anybody who subscribes to my mailing list. They get this whole spectrum of free screensavers, so you can actually just have it on your computer. And if you're feeling like tired or something and you want to get a quick energy pick-me-up, you can stare at the red screensaver. Or if you're, but for creative thinking, there's a study that was done on this as well. For if you want to enhance creative thinking, being surrounded by blue or having blue on the back of your computer screen enhances creative out-of-the-box thinking, whereas having red enhances more fine detail, memory work, calculations, more, which makes sense, because red gives you that fine focus, whereas blue gives you that more expanded state of awareness.
Wow, that's really cool, because a lot of people want to write, or they write, articles for their blogs or magazine articles or books or things. That would be a really helpful tool.
Yeah, and I would think because, you obviously, I would probably experiment with different things, but I would probably start because of, the flow process that I teach ties in directly with if you're using the colors that you're craving, that helps you get into flow. So even if it's not blue that you're craving, maybe you're craving red. It may be red that will send you into flow, which was my experience, in my own painting process. It's like if I'm craving red will put me into flow state. If I'm craving blue will put me into flow state. If I'm craving teal will put me into flow state. So, I would tell people to, experiment with that. Bring in, just whatever screensavers or fabric swatches or something and, drape them behind the screen so you see them like you're looking at them. And, good experiment.
That's fascinating. Leanne, I have to go to the bathroom really quick, but I wanted to ask you a couple questions. About sitting in the sun and not being directly in the sun, like sitting in the shade, and if that's still available. And then I want to get your thoughts about cancer, and then I want to talk about your light. Can you hold on for just a sec while I go to the bathroom?
No problem.
Awesome, thank you. Did you know that conventional dog food contains antibiotics, herbicides, pesticides, ground up carcasses from roadkill subjected to high heat processing, artificial colors, chemical preservatives, way too many carbohydrates, genetically modified corn syrups, indigestible grains, and a lack of moisture content in the dry kibble? Obviously, this can lead to health conditions like diabetes, itchy skin, teeth and gum problems, liver damage, obesity, behavioral issues, pancreatic problems, and even cancer. That's why we recommend the BARF diet, which is the biologically appropriate raw food diet from Barf World. Their unprocessed raw meats contain bone, organ meats, vitamins, and minerals that are loaded with enzymes. Barf World founder Robert Mueller explains more.
Sure, I don't have to convince you on the damage that's caused by high heat to food. So as a result, we see many skin disorders, a lot of arthritis, obesity, heart disease, cancers. It's just rampant. The vet clinics are just full of these conditions. And basically a large percentage of the commercial pet food is made up of the human industry leftovers. And the pet food industry makes use of this waste product. And in addition to that, we are subjected to the products coming out of the rendering plants. Garbage in, garbage out. If you feed garbage to your dog, you're going to end up with garbage health. If you put the right gas in, your engine runs smoother and lasts longer. So if you put the right fuel in the tank, you're going to get the right output. Garbage in, garbage out.
We've seen an immense difference with our dog Maggie being on this diet. Give your dog the gift of health today by going to extremehealthradio.com/barf or go to our store. That's extremehealthradio.com/barf to learn even more.
Okay, Leanne, are you still there?
Yes, I am.
Excellent. Gosh, there's so much to get to here. I wanted to ask you about...
Now you know my quandary. Whenever I have to give a 1 hour talk, I'm always like, what do I have to cut out?
I know. I noticed you were doing that at the Bulletproof. You just didn't have any time to talk about any extra
I know.
stuff.
It happens every time. I'm like, I want to talk more about that. I don't have time.
Maybe next time we could do another show. We could just go for a long time because... So is it okay if people are in the sun? Like, let's say someone goes to a picnic or they're outside, they're at the beach or something, and they're sitting in the shade. We've had guests tell us that you can still get all the benefits of being in the sun by not sitting for 3-4 hours and burning in the hot midday sun. Is that true, do you think?
No.
Okay.
I'll tell you why. No, you being in the shade cuts out certain wavelengths, so you're not getting certain wavelengths. They're not coming through the trees, the canopy, and that sort of thing. So plants, actually, they've done experiments with this where they've taken plants, and the plants can tell the difference between when the sun is cloudy, not the sun is cloudy, when the sky is cloudy versus when there's another plant growing over top of them. Because when there's another plant growing over top of them, it cuts out certain wavelengths that the plant needs, and it says, whoa, I need to grow around this because I'm not getting the vital nutrients that I need because this plant is blocking them. Whereas if it's cloudy, all of the wavelengths, you're still going to get the blue and the red and everything will come through. Okay. Like the blue wavelengths will still come through. They're just at a lower percentage, so the plant can tell. But when there's a plant growing over it, it can tell the difference between that and when it's just cloudy out. So and it does. It needs those nutrients just like we need all of them. So you're not going to be getting the full spectrum of nutrients. But I tell people, like, you don't need to be out under the sun for a really long period of time. So you need to get what I call your minimum daily requirement of sunshine. Mm-hmm. So it doesn't mean you need to go out under the sun and bake for an hour. So you can be under the shade after you've gotten your minimum, amount of full spectrum sunshine.
How long is how long is the minimum, do you think?
It depends on your skin tone. It depends on where your ancestors evolved. Okay. Because we each evolved at a different place, not a different place on the planet, all of us. But, if your ancestors are from a northern climate where the sun was very low in the sky, it didn't get very high and hot, like you didn't get a lot of UV, so your body had to adapt to get the minimal amount of those, UVB that was coming through to be able to produce the vitamin D. So it made your skin much more receptive to those wavelengths. So it takes in as much as it can get, which means that if you then go to a southern climate, it's going to be like receptive to way too much of that light. It doesn't have the protective factor built in, which is why people from northern climates burn really quickly. So for them, if they're in a southern climate, but their ancestors are from a northern climate, then they may only need 5 minutes in the sun. And you can tell when you start turning a very slight pink. So when your skin gets a slight pink to it, then you're done. You don't need it anymore, and you don't want it anymore because you will burn at that point. Okay. So after 24 hours, your body will build up, melanin, which will protect the skin. So the next time you may be able to stay out for 7 minutes or 10 minutes or maybe longer, depends on how quickly your body produces the melanin. So and you can't, there's no single answer for anyone. Like for me, the very first time I go out, I'm, half Italian, so I can stay out for like an hour the first time I go out in the sun and I don't burn. I'll get like that slight pink and I'll be fine. And then the next day, it turns into a tan. But I don't ever want to go past that because when you go past that point and you do burn your skin, that's bad for you. So getting chronic sun exposure, daily sun exposure, is a good thing. And even if it's 5 minutes a day, if you're very pale skinned from a northern climate and you live in a southern climate, that's kind of like the extreme thing. So people with dark skin are actually the most deficient in vitamin D because they need even more sunshine than people with pale skin because, again, they evolved to live under these really hot suns. So since they were out all the time under this extremely strong sun, they evolved to have this very strong protective layer in their skin so that they can tolerate huge amounts of sunshine, which also then counteractively means that they need to get a lot of sunshine to be able to produce the vitamin D that they need because that's how they evolved. Does that make sense? Yeah,
that makes a lot of sense. So the darker your skin, the less sunlight you probably need, or the more sunlight you probably need.
The more you need, yes. Yeah. And they've actually found this. So the people with dark skin, in North America are the most vitamin D deficient. Pretty much I don't know what the percentage is now, but there's a really high percentage. Like 70% of the people worldwide are deficient in vitamin D, and something like 85 or 95% in the United States is deficient in vitamin D, all because of the myth of people, being propagated about sunshine causing cancer.
Right.
So my whole thing has been, no, we need sunshine. Get sunshine. That's like free. It doesn't cost you anything. You just have to know how to do it wisely. And you have to know that for you as an individual, your sunshine tolerance is maybe not going to be the same as your partner's or even your children, because, if your children have a mix of genes from you and your spouse, and that they may have more tolerance to sunshine than you do.
Yeah, it's so complex. Yeah, it's different for every person.
But basically, that looking at the skin and like just keeping an eye on your skin and seeing when does it start to turn pink, then you're done. Then you can go in the shade. So at that point, yes, going in the shade is fine, because then you're not going to get the damaging UV light. It won't. That's what gets filtered out is the UV and the blue.
Okay, and so if you're in the shade, you can. If you don't have sunglasses on, I'm sure your eyes can still. You're looking at a blue sky, and so you're still getting a lot of benefit by being in the shade outside.
Yeah, but do it after you've gotten the full spectrum sunshine, because you're not going to get any of the UVA and the UVB on your skin while you're in the shade.
So speaking of all this, I'm sure you're not a big fan of sunscreen, right?
No, I'm not a big. I personally, if I need to use any sunscreen, if I'm going to be out for a really long time, then I'll use like an all-natural, non-nanoparticle, zinc-based sunscreen. Yeah. That it just creates literally a protective barrier. It doesn't get absorbed into your bloodstream. There aren't any toxic chemicals. Like, I don't know, again, what the percent. It's improving now. It used to be something like 85% of all the sunscreens on the market were highly toxic and carcinogenic because they have substances in them that become carcinogenic when they're exposed to sunshine, which is really ridiculous when you think about it.
I know, right? Isn't that so counterintuitive, right? It's so.
I know. So no, I'm not. I try to get as much sun on my body as possible. Before, like, without burning. And if I do anything, I'll put some on my face. If I'm out riding my scooter around. But for that. But again, make sure it's an all-natural one, not nanoparticle. And now you go on to, there's a website and an app called Skin Deep by the Environmental Wellness Guide or whatever they're called, EWG, I think. But anyway, it's called Skin Deep. It's a free app that you can get for any phone or tablet. And you can actually look at, type in your product that you're using, or I think they may even be able to take a photo of it. But you can see what the safety levels of any product are. Oh, wow. And then also look at different sunscreens and get the ones that are the safest.
What are your thoughts about laying naked in the sun and exposing your body, parts of your body that don't normally get exposed to the sun?
Well, same thing. I mean, those areas are going to be more susceptible to the sunshine because if they haven't built up that protective layer. So you would just have to, moderate your sun exposure on those more sensitive areas. Okay. So, like the first time you go out, that's why, if you're wearing a bathing suit and you ever have like part that gets exposed and that normally doesn't get any sun, it will tend to get burned or like more pink.
Right.
Plus there's the concentration of like the rays tend to get concentrated around where there's like bands and things. But yeah, same. I mean, yeah, the more skin you can expose to the sun, the better it is. But if you have body parts that have never seen the sun or haven't seen it in years, then it won't have that protective layer. So just be aware of that.
So interesting. So I want to ask you about your light device that you have. A lot of people are out there like me, and I purchased one of these chicken brooder lights, the red lights. I think during the Bulletproof conference, you were saying that they're not necessarily going to enhance and bring all the wavelengths in that you want. Are they damaging, and what's the difference between the LED technology that you're using?
Okay, so for the heat lamps, the infrared heat lamps, those were designed to emit heat. So by design, they are made to emit wavelengths in the mid and far infrared predominantly.
Okay.
And mid and far infrared don't have any healing effect on the mitochondria at all. Mid and far infrared get absorbed by the water in the body.
Okay.
So they can heat you up quickly inside, like inside your cells, you'll feel warmer more quickly instead of having to be in a hot, sauna where the heat is only coming in from the external heat. They heat you up internally as well. So that's why they make you sweat faster than just being in a conventional sauna that has heat only coming in from the outside.
Okay.
But the thing, the misinformation that, like, all over the place about those things is that they can be used as a red or a near-infrared bulb, and they have almost no red or near-infrared emitted from them, like less than a household incandescent bulb. You're going to get more red light and near-infrared therapy from an old Edison bulb than you will from one of those giant heat bulbs. And I go into detail about it in my Bulletproof talk with images and spectrometer readings.
Mm-hmm. I saw that, yeah.
This information even by sellers of those bulbs, they'll show you just the very first part of the spectrometer reading, which shows, red and near infrared, but it's like it's about 1% of the whole spectrometer reading where they're showing that, and they're cutting off the whole rest of it that shows the mid and far infrared wavelengths. So, and that's what, 95% of that bulb is emitting all of those other wavelengths that don't have any effect on mitochondria whatsoever.
Okay. Are they damaging, do you think?
No, anytime, so if you have a lot of heat in your body, being exposed to a lot of excess heat, this is, basic in Chinese medicine. When people have an excess amount of heat in their body, mm-hmm. and then they go into hot environments, hot and humid, anything like that, it can actually make you worse. It can actually harm you, yes. So if you feel hot at night, for example, if you get night sweats and things like that, that means you're deficient in yin. Your air conditioner part is weak. Okay. So if it's already weak and taxed, and this happens a lot with not just women, but women as they get older tend to decline in their yin. So that's why, women that are going through menopause will have heat flashes or hot flashes, or as they call them, or sweat at night. But a lot of men sometimes will get that too. If they feel really hot at night and they feel fine during the day, they can be yin deficient as well. So that means your air conditioner is already having a hard time cooling down your body. So, and a lot of that can be corrected just by changing the diet and like eliminating certain things like, hot, spicy food, which will actually exacerbate that because you're putting heat into something already that's struggling. It's kind of like I use the analogy of if you live in Texas, where I live in Austin, and it can be 100 degrees outside, and if you've got a house that's got a 20-year-old air conditioner, the air conditioner is already struggling. It's like, okay, come on, it's 100 degrees out, I'm having a hard time cooling down the house. So your air conditioner is like plugging away and, being a trooper, but then you're like, okay, well, let me just give you a hand and I'm going to open up all the windows now. Okay. So that's like if your air conditioner, your yin is already deficient, and then you start eating a lot of spicy food and drinking a lot of alcohol, drinking a lot of coffee, all of those things add a lot more heat to the body. So in those cases, going into a hot sauna is also going to exacerbate that. It's not going to be healing. And it can actually, I've seen people with cancer that, going there, in cancer, it's like what's called phlegm. I'm not going to get into a lot about the Chinese diagnosis of that, but if you already have cancer and you go to a hot, humid environment, it can actually make your cancer worse much more rapidly. So for those kind of things, yeah, you just have to be aware that we are these, a balanced system. So sometimes being in a hot environment and sweating a lot can be very good for you. Other times it might not be good for you. So
you also have to depend on what your dosha is, right? Like you're just saying what kind of person you are as well.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
So from Vata Pitta Kapha. So if you think of it in terms of, that's the Ayurvedic way of thinking about it. In Chinese medicine, they use different terminology, but it's all talking about the same thing. Having excess heat in your body, you don't want to be putting more heat in because it will actually weaken your system. You can get sick from doing those sorts of things. But the problem is that a lot of people are now buying those bulbs or those saunas because they're being told that they're going to get near infrared and red light therapy at the same time, which is like blatantly untrue because, in my Bulletproof talk, I talk about, you want a nice big glass of fresh squeezed orange juice. So you're going to take your orange and you're going to juice it and you're going to like put it in the big glass, and then you're going to take one dropper full of that, one drop of that orange juice and put it into a big 5-gallon jug of water. That one drop of orange juice in the 5-gallon jug of water is like how much red and near-infrared you're getting from those heat lamp bulbs.
Wow. Yeah, that's a great analogy, but it seems like, it's got a red filter on it, doesn't it? Doesn't it emit red light, or is it just the wrong nanometer, or what's wrong with it?
There's a red filter, yes. So that most of the red color is coming from the film that they put on the front. Uh-huh. There is a little bit of visible light, but those are 250 watt bulbs. So if you think of, the power, the energy that is being used to light up one of those, and then you compare it side by side with an incandescent 100 watt bulb, the old Edison style bulb. Uh-huh. A 100 watt Edison bulb is pretty bright, right? Mm-hmm. A 250 watt heat lamp bulb, you can't, there's like a very little illumination that comes from those. There is some light, but it's not really bright. It's not 2.5 times the brightness of an incandescent bulb. And the reason for that is because visible light is the only light that illuminates. So the light wavelengths that are colored, that by definition means light. Light and color are the same thing. So near-infrared is not light, it's radiation, just like mid-infrared and far-infrared are radiation. UV is radiation. They're not technically light. People use them interchangeably now, but because they don't illuminate, they don't give off any light. If you have near-infrared LEDs, they look like they're not doing anything. You can't see the light that's coming from them because it's not light. It's radiation. It's not illumination.
Right.
Does that make sense? So the little bit of light that's coming from that 250 watt bulb, and there is some, it's like you can see the filament, gets bright, but it's not very much compared to the amount of energy that they're using. So yes, there is that tiny amount of red light and a little bit of near infrared, but all of it, and it's by design, they actually intentionally design those bulbs because this is the problem that Edison had. This is why he had to keep doing these experiments over and over and over again with different materials, because anytime you push the energy into the visible light range, that burns out the filament really quickly. So with the heat lamp bulbs, they wanted them to emit mostly heat. That's all they wanted them for because they're heat lamp bulbs. So they push it far to the right. Keeping it in the mid and far infrared range does not burn out the bulb quickly. Those bulbs can last a very long time. Well, I don't know how long, but, compared to a 100 watt Edison bulb that is illuminating a lot, those burn out very quickly in comparison. So by design, they're pushing it into the mid and far range, infrared range, because those are the wavelengths they want. They want the heat. Mid and far infrared emit heat. Near-infrared does not emit any heat at all. That's why near-infrared LEDs don't feel warm. They just don't, you don't get heat from them. They'll warm up a tiny bit, but not like, you turn on one of those chicken bulbs and you're blasted with heat immediately.
Oh, yeah, it's immediate.
That? Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and you can't get very close to them. For the tiny, tiny amount of red and near-infrared that they have in them, you can't be really close to those bulbs because you will burn your skin. Mm-hmm. If you touch those things, they'll scorch you, so you can't even get close enough to absorb the minimal amount of photons that are being emitted from them. So there's a tiny amount, but it's kind of like for the payoff, the benefits, the potential harm, and the tiny amount of red light that you're getting from them, it's just, you'd have to spend about 5 hours in front of one of those things to get the same that you would from LED lights that are single wavelength. So that's why it's easier when you can see the spectrometer readings, and I can show you visually to explain it, because that's where a lot of people don't, and they don't realize that what goes up must come down in a spectrometer reading too. So if somebody does take that little, they're zooming in on that one droplet of orange juice in the 5-gallon container and saying, hey, this is a 5-gallon jug of orange juice. That's basically what they're doing. Right. So they've cut out the rest of the spectrometer reading. They've cut out the rest of the 5-gallon jug that's all full of water.
For people that are interested in seeing what she's talking about, watch her talk on her YouTube channel. It's the Bulletproof talk that you just gave recently. Okay, so with LED and red light, you were talking during the conference that I want to see how I should say this. The less time that you're in front of it is actually a better thing, right? Because if you have to spend 4 minutes in front of an LED and you need to spend, triple that for some other device that's not LED, the LED device is more practical and better. Is that correct?
Yes. Yeah, because you're getting more photons. It's all about the number of photons.
Okay.
So there's an optimal range. It's like too little. You'd have to literally be next to the thing for hours, to get enough of those red photons into your body.
Okay.
If you're using a device that's emitting a lot of photons and you can put it right next to your skin, that's maximum. That really shortens your treatment time. So it's really about, how much spare time do you have? I mean, I'm personally, even with the fast light therapy, it's like I still like to multitask. I still like to do it at the same time I'm doing something else. I don't want to just sit there and, do light therapy, even if it's only for 3 minutes. I like to be able to do it at the same time as something else, because 3 minutes is valuable to me.
Now, can you set those up on your desk and do it while you're working?
You can, yeah. Mine you can put on a table, like a tabletop thing. You can have it shining on you. You can have it shining on you while you're working if you want. If you don't want to do that, if you don't want to have it shining on you while you're working, you can just do 3-minute treatments. I mean, for skin type, I have really 1 minute, but 1 to 3 minutes for any type of skin issues per area. People have had amazing results, healing like persistent dermatitis, eczema, things like that in 1 or 2 minute treatments, like a single one.
Wow.
Like a single, that's how fast the results are. So, and I have a whole testimonials page now on my website. I still have to add about 10 more because they keep coming in.
Yeah.
But it's on my catalyticcolor.com / what did I call that? Is it testimonials?
I think there's a link up top.
No. Yeah. Yes, reviews. I do have direct links on my website now. So.
Yeah, so I wanted to ask you, what are your thoughts about the nanometers? People say that 660 nanometers is that tight space that you want to keep the light frequency in. I don't know much about nanometers. What are your thoughts about that stuff?
So nanometers are just like centimeters, millimeters. They're a wavelength. They're a measurement, like a space measurement. Just like they're a smaller measurement than a millimeter. So nanometers are how you measure the length of the wave. So red wavelengths are from 600 to 700 nanometers. Near infrared is from 700 to about 1,000, 1,070 nanometers. Below that, in the blue range, you're looking at 400. It depends on what you call blue or blue violet, but UV is in the 300s and blues in the 400s. Anyway, so the shorter wavelengths have higher energy, the longer wavelengths have lower energy. The longer wavelengths can penetrate more deeply, and the shorter wavelengths are more superficial. So like blue light on the skin will tend to not penetrate very deeply into the body, so it's very good for doing like surface treatments like acne and things like that with red. Red wavelengths will penetrate into the body, but there's a lot of misinformation also that's being now discovered in the science realm about depths of penetration, whereas before they used to believe that certain wavelengths of red light will go more deeply into the body and near infrared, and then the longer wavelengths of near infrared will go even deeper. But now they're finding that, oh, wait a minute, none of that is true, because all those experiments were done on what's called ex vivo tissue. Mm-hmm. So they've taken a chunk of flesh or an organ or whatever it is that they're testing, and then they're shining light on this basically dead chunk of flesh, which is no longer in part of the intact energy system. Those meridians that I was talking about? Mm-hmm. So they don't have, it's like you've taken out a piece of electrical wiring and you're expecting it to be able to, transmit energy, but it's just like a little chunk of wire. But when you put it into the whole system, now you can shine light onto that wire, and the wire will actually carry the information for you. So regarding the different depths of penetration stuff, that's all irrelevant, and which ties in also with the myths about the 660 nanometers. And unfortunately, when I first started teaching about this, and all the research that I was coming across was using 660 nanometers, and then I discovered how research studies get funded. The reason they kept testing 660 nanometers wasn't because it was the best wavelength. It was because once something is discovered and proven, then in order to be able to get funding to do another research study, you basically have to say, we already know this is going to work, so we want to experiment with this and try it for this application now. So that's where a lot of things they get, that's why it can take a really long time to expand in the research realm, because you can only tangentially move off of something. So it's like, we know that this 660 nanometers works, and now we can test this along with another thing or compare it to this and that, but they have to have something that they know works. So, and the whole thing about absorption rates of different wavelengths, again, that's all irrelevant because of the fact that they weren't taking into account the way that our bodies actually transmit this energy. So I started, before I even started uncovering research that was showing that there are other wavelengths that are actually stronger and more effective than 660 nanometers, I was doing my own experimentation with different wavelengths, and I was finding, wait a minute, these other wavelengths are actually more powerful. They're having much faster effects than 660, so what's going on with that? And then research started to catch up. So now you're starting to see more research studies where they're finding that other wavelengths are actually more powerful. So, and you have to look at like what you're using it for, because different wavelengths are optimal for different things. I mean, they all stimulate the mitochondria in the red and the near infrared, but if you think of on a scale of 1 to 100, one wavelength might stimulate the mitochondria at a 2 out of 100 level, whereas another wavelength right next to it might stimulate the mitochondria at 98 out of 100. Mm-hmm. So they're all going to have some effect, but some are just a lot more powerful than others. And 660 is no longer the most powerful wavelength of red. Yeah,
because I see a lot of people talking about the 660, and they'll say things like, anything above that is actually going to damage you, and it's kind of wrapped in this kind of fear thing. So their whole thing is like, make sure you stick to the 660 nanometers, because if you go above that, it's going to be damaging to your body, and then that puts fear. It's almost kind of similar to how they market drugs and things like that, where there's just a lot of fear involved, So
there's even and obviously that's all mythology, and there's like no value. I mean, that would mean that like anytime you're under Edison incandescent bulb, you're going to be, what's happening to you? I mean, is it supposed to make you explode or what? I don't know what they're like, where they're even getting this information from. And near infrared is higher than 660. So that pretty much says all the research about near infrared having healing effects is thrown out the window, because if you go beyond 660, you're killing yourself. Right. Well, guess what? It's like we evolved to live and thrive under sunlight. These wavelengths are exactly the same. They're wavelengths of light. They're like, it's a thing that's exactly the same, whether it's coming from an LED light or the sunlight. Now, when you bring in lasers, that's different. That's actually changing the light. It's no longer like sunlight, because lasers emit coherent light, which means they're wavelengths that are all in sync with each other, whereas non-coherent light is wavelengths that are out of sync with each other, which is what sunlight is. So when you put wavelengths in sync with each other, it makes them stronger, more powerful, and also more potentially damaging. So they're really good for things like surgery and cutting tissue, but they're not optimal. They will have healing effects, but you have to be really, really careful that you don't overdose on them, because you can very easily overdose on coherent laser light, whereas you can't overdose on LED wavelengths of light, unless they're, the potentially damaging ones, which are in the shorter wavelength, blue, because blue light can be damaging to the eyes, as can green light. Mm-hmm. But with red and near infrared, your cells, they don't get damaged. They'll shut themselves off when they're full, essentially. So if you're not adding heat, and really it's like there's this optimal window of strength output where it's like too much is overkill. Like, you don't need these super industrial LEDs, which I've seen some people now making these devices with these industrial LEDs where you need to have a fan blowing on them because they're so hot and they're blinding. I mean, I don't know those. I mean, the light is so bright from them. They may actually be harmful to your eyes. I really don't know, but you don't need that much strength. Plus, you can't get close to them because they're like they're putting out all this heat. And you have to stand back so far away from them that any increase in power is then being diluted because of the distance that you have to stand away from them to treat yourself. So it's just there, and all of this is happening because you have, starting from my lecture several years ago, this is what caused this explosion in the red and near infrared therapy, because I'm the first person that actually brought in hard science to validate what we've known for a very long time. There have been light therapy devices around for a long time, not a lot of them, but they've been out there, and people have been, well, that can't work, what's that about? That we just have this disconnect where we've been conditioned to believe that you have to take a pill. So by bringing in all of the hard science and explaining it from an evolutionary standpoint, then it's like people are all of a sudden, oh, well, this makes sense. Why is nobody talking about this? So those first videos that I put out, they spewed this whole, like, not only tens of thousands of people were watching them, but like thousands of people were then writing articles based on those videos. So there's, that's how it spread so quickly. And, unfortunately, because I did say in one of them where it's like 660 nanometers is the strongest wavelength, and I'm like, oh, man, and then that's how myths get propagated. It's like somebody says something and then. But anyway,
so these are all available on your website, right? I see on your website there's Timeless Youth. You've got 4 different options. What are the differences between these options?
Okay, so the formula number 1 is Timeless Youth. It is primarily for any kind of skin or muscle issues. So anything in the skin layers, so whether you want to treat wrinkles, boost collagen, get rid of hyperpigmentation, treat mild cases of acne, wounds, things like that, stimulate hair growth, anything, allergies, stuff like that, anything that's superficial, or anything in the muscle layers, which is like pain, inflammation, and also for skin things, eczema, psoriasis, dermatitis, if I didn't mention those, anything with pain, delayed onset muscle soreness after working out, anything in the muscle or skin layers, that first formula will work on. And most people are buying that one because they just want, the anti-aging effects. They want that sort of thing. But because people, when they have, more like serious joint issues and pain like that, you need to have the near infrared, and the near infrared combined with the red is in the number 2 and the number 3 formulation. So the number 1 is just red with different wavelengths of red light. Number 2 is red mixed with near infrared, and then the number 3 is the universal, which is a combination of the 1 and the 2. So it has all the benefits of Formula 1 and Formula 2 combined. So in Formula 2 is kind of like more focused for athletes, people that, have muscle pain and injury, or joint type stuff. So the number 3 does all the anti-aging stuff as well as all the joint pain, muscle stuff. Okay,
so you could get the Formula 4, is that correct? That combines the first 3?
Yeah, number 3 is 1 and 2 combined.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, and number 4 is a completely separate one. That one is called the Bacteria Buster. That's like for skin and antibacterial effect because it's blue combined with red. So really powerful blue light, which will kill bacteria, and combined with red, which then heals the skin. So any kind of persistent wounds, really severe acne or mild acne, or MRSA, which is, methicillin-resistant Staphylococcus aureus, which is resistant to antibiotics. So it's a really big problem in hospitals. So that wavelength of blue light will kill that very effectively if it's in the surface layers again. That's anyway, so that's a more targeted use just for people, but only if you have like some kind of persistent infection or if you're dealing with acne, because acne is caused by a bacteria that's proliferating under the skin. So you want to kill the acne bacteria and also heal the skin at the same time. So it's a combination of red and blue. But the universal, the number 3, which is called the universal, is by far the most popular. I mean, that's the one that most people buy because they're basically getting two for the price of one.
Right. It's a combination of two. That's really cool. Wow.
But yeah, and that's where, because I've had exponentially more of those sold, that's where most of my testimonials are coming in about the number 3s as well.
Yeah,
so.
I'm just looking. I'm on your page now and looking at all the different photos of how people are using it up to their face and up to their back and their stomach. And that's pretty cool.
Yeah, and lots of, again, lifelong pain and joint pain. Osteoarthritis is one woman, just a few treatments, got rid of pain that she's had for years and years. Another woman who's 76 got rid of bursitis that she's had in her shoulder for 35 years with one treatment. And she wasn't even trying to treat the bursitis. She was treating the shingles outbreak on her back, which was really bad. And she did the treatment at night, and she woke up the next morning, and the shingles were already healing, after she'd had them open, oozing wounds for 2 months and painful, stabbing pain constantly. So she did this one treatment at night, 20 minutes. I told her to do 20 minutes on the shingles because they were so deep. And it was covering her right shoulder at the same time because the shingles went all the way over there. And she woke up in the morning. She's like, "Oh my God, I just realized I slept the whole night through," which I can't remember the last time I slept through the whole night. Wow. Because her bursitis would always flare up at night and she could never get comfortable. She'd just be in pain all the time and tossing and turning. So she wakes up, she realizes that she not only slept all the way through, the pain in her shoulder was gone, completely gone. She's like, I couldn't remember what it felt like to not have pain in that shoulder. The night before she had done a treatment on her knees, I told her to treat because she had knee pain in her left knee that was getting worse and worse, and every few months she was having to go and get these really expensive cortisone shots, which would only make it, temporarily better where she could walk on it, but it was never healing it. So she was getting these really expensive cortisone shots, and so she does one treatment on her knees, and wakes up the next morning and the pain is gone from her knee. It had gotten so bad, she had been really active and used to take a trip every year, and she had to cancel her trip. It was supposed to be this month, actually, and this was a few months ago. She just felt like she couldn't walk. She was having to walk with a cane, and there was no way that she could go to a foreign country and then, possibly fall down, and then who knows what's going to happen.
Wow.
So she had canceled her trip a few weeks before she came and got the light. And then after doing this treatment, she's like, "Oh man, I wish I hadn't canceled that trip now."
Oh my gosh, that's so crazy.
Once she started walking. Anyway.
Wow.
So yeah, this is where I feel like people they're just so deficient in light. I mean, putting the light back into the system, it just is having all these profound healing effects, quickly.
Do you have any plans on changing the shape or the size of the device?
Right now, no, I actually chose this body design very specifically because I wanted to have a universal device that you could use on any body part, because there are just a bunch of different light therapy products out there. There are little ones that you can shine up your nose for allergic rhinitis, which you can use this for as well. Mm-hmm. So I've had a whole bunch of people that have been treating allergies and colds and flu with it just by shining it on their face. You don't need a little separate device for shining 2 LEDs up your nose. You don't need a separate one for a thing to treat your hair. You can put this on your head and treat your hair in your head. One guy also grew out his beard. I think he was just doing facial treatments. I don't think he was trying to grow out his beard, but he's always had a patchy beard all his life. He's 34, and he's like, his wife always wanted him to have a fuller beard because she said I look like a 16-year-old. But within, I think, was it 5 weeks? 5 weeks that he was using the light, just treating his face, and now he's got this full-blown beard, a really manly beard.
Wow.
He's very happy about. But anyway, so you can treat any body part, and the other thing, you can lay it right on your body, and people love holding it. It's really comfortable to hold. I get people emailing me all the time. It's they love using it, and they've told me that they've tried so many different other things, other treatment modalities that, they're supposed to be helpful, and they can't stick with them because they're not seeing immediate results, and they're just awkward, and they don't enjoy doing them. And they're there's something about the light that people, and again, I think it's because they're so deficient, but it feels really good when you've got it against your body. So, and you can either put it on your front, you can lean against it, you can hang it on a wall, you can suspend it over you. There are just all these different ways of using it. So right now, I mean, I chose this because I wanted to make something that could be universally applied, that could be used for anybody, and could treat all of these different things, not just one thing. So that's where I am right now. I had another design, in mind a few years ago where I wanted to make a wraparound thing, but then I realized it wasn't practical. It wasn't effective. I couldn't make the lights bright enough, as bright as I wanted them to be, and it was just awkward. There were like way too many issues with the design, and it was just, so this is actually much more applicable to pretty much everything.
Yeah, that's so great. I'll put a link over to your website for this. It's catalyticcolor.com, and people can just purchase right on there, right?
Yeah, and if anybody's hearing this show, they can use a coupon code Extreme25.
Oh, no way.
Yeah, I made that special for you today.
Oh, that's awesome. Thank you for that. I didn't even know that. Extreme and then the number 25?
Yeah, right after it. It doesn't matter. It shouldn't matter if it's all uppercase or lowercase. It shouldn't be case sensitive, but you can do all caps. And that'll be good through, when's this going to air? In a couple days?
Yeah, let's see. This is Friday, so probably by Monday at the latest, yeah.
Okay, then I'll make it good through the end of February.
Okay, cool. I'll put a little note on our little show page there. That's awesome. End of February. That's awesome. Thanks, Leanne, for your time today and for all the work that you're doing. I'm going to explore some of your other YouTube videos because I'm super fascinated by this, and maybe we can do it again because there's so many other questions I had. I mean, just about people, and it goes on and on. It's crazy.
Yeah, I know. I'm speaking at a big brain and neuroscience conference at the end of April out in California, and all their speakers, these are all the leading experts in brain and neuroscience, like from around the world that come to this conference. It's huge. And the speakers there, we only get 15 minutes. So I'm going to be like, oh my God, what am I going to pare down to?
Oh my
It's going to be hard. Yeah, I'm definitely going to talk about using near infrared for treating depression and anxiety.
Oh my gosh, that's crazy.
On the brain, that's another thing. But anyway, yes, it's been very cool. We need to do another one.
Yeah, 15 minutes for that, man. That's not enough. That's crazy.
Yeah, that's going to be my record shortest. That's shorter than a TED Talk.
Awesome. Well, hang on right there on the line, and I'm going to just close out the live show or the show in general. Thanks everybody for joining us. I really, really appreciate this. I hope you enjoyed it. This was episode, let me make sure I get this correct so you can go onto our website and get all the links and stuff like that. This was episode 508. So if you go to extremehealthradio.com/508, that will be the show page for this particular interview. I try to make it easy for you. So all you have to remember is the number of the show, 508. So thank you for listening. I really appreciate it, and I hope this helped you out in some way and you learned a little bit more about light therapy and what light therapy can do for you and help to improve your health. So, yeah, just thanks so much for being a part of everything we have going on. And if you enjoyed the show, please consider passing it on to your friends and other people in your life that you think might benefit from any of the information that we shared today. That would be awesome. We would both appreciate it so much. So thank you again, everybody. We love you, and let us know if we can ever help, and we'll catch you guys on the next show.
Hi there, Dick Allgaier here. I was a mainstream television news reporter for over 3 decades. I normally never do commercial endorsements. I am very skeptical of health supplements, but a friend of mine told me about his experience with Synergy One, so I purchased a bottle, and my wife and I have been using it for a few weeks now. I very much dislike so-called energy boosters, those little energy drinks that have caffeine and guarana and other things that make your heart race. This is not that. My experience with Synergy One has been great. My mood is better, my joints feel better, I have more vigor, more stamina, way increased productivity. My wife and I both noticed that we even dream more. So I recommend Synergy One. It's really good stuff. I'm having great results with it.
You can click on the Synergy One banner ad right here at extremehealthradio.com. That's extremehealthradio.com.
Well, there you go. Episode 508. Is that correct? Yeah, 508. And just as an aside, if you guys are interested in those products we just talked about from Synergistic Nutrition over at Stephen Hewer's place. He was on our show a couple times, episode 458, episode 476. He's probably been on a few other times too. I love their stuff. Just by the way, if you guys want to try any of the products there, I'm a big fan of the One More Way and the Andreas seed oils. They've just got some really, really high quality stuff. They've got Synergy One. Man, they have some really, really cool stuff over there. So if you guys are interested in any of the products from Synergistic Nutrition, we'll put a link on this show page, which is extremehealthradio.com/508 in case you want to try some of their unique products. But you know what I would probably do is I would listen to the shows we've done with Stephen Hewer, 476 and 458, our most recent ones, and see if you like him and if you like what he's doing and what he's up to. He's got some really cool stuff, the products that we buy from him. He's got so many products. I haven't tried all of them. I've tried handfuls of them, but gosh, he's got so many that I want to try out. So I just love what he's doing. So if you're interested in the seed oils or the One More Way, you can check those out. But what did you think about Leanne? What is it? So let me make sure. Leanne Venier. What did you think about her? Did you like the show? I thought it was interesting. I'm so fascinated by light and just this idea. I've pulled up this quote actually. Let's see. I pulled this up. Now get this is pretty interesting. It says, when a human sperm cell makes contact with an egg, a flash of light is produced, which indicates that the egg has been successfully fertilized and can now develop into a healthy embryo. The spark occurs when a fertilized egg releases of billions of zinc atoms at the exact moment of conception. Some eggs produce brighter sparks than others, depending on their ability to develop into a healthy embryo. So it's interesting, what I was talking about during the show was that when cells die, they emit a biophotonic light, and that light is what feeds the living cells to continue to live. And so our cells can only live as a result of the spark of light that gets created when a cell dies. Isn't that interesting? And so it makes sense that, that in light of what I just read about the embryos. Let me read that again. This was pretty cool stuff. When a human sperm cell makes contact with an egg, a flash of light is produced, which indicates that the egg has been successfully fertilized and can now develop into a healthy embryo. The spark occurs when a fertilized egg releases of billions of zinc atoms at the exact moment of conception. Some eggs produce brighter sparks than others, depending on their ability to develop into a healthy embryo. So I've been thinking a lot about this idea of light and light therapy. And you know what? To be honest, it sounds like a bunch of bunk. It really does. Can light really heal? Can light, people making these, exorbitant claims out there of what light can do, because that's just the nature of human beings. We just exaggerate everything. And so it does sound like new age, kind of hippie, crazy, woo-woo kind of things. But when you look at the science of it and you start understanding that we are light beings and we emit light and we live off of light, and you start looking into science and the mechanics of it all, it really does make sense. And I was thinking about this the other day. Do you think it's possible? People say, well, we're getting so much cancer because we're eating food that's inorganic or not organic food, or pesticides and herbicides and chemicals and this, that, and the other. And, but what if, or lack of exercise, people say we're living a sedentary lifestyle. And I suspect that it's all sort of interrelated, right? Everything is sort of interrelated. It's just the way it is. And so I think at the hierarchy, if you think of it like a pyramid, which, by the way, I want to talk about in one of our next Free for All Friday shows, this pyramid that we have from Ken Rolla, that is really cool. If you're interested in scalar technology, we have that pyramid in our store, and you can watch some videos about it too. But it just reminded me of when I said pyramid that, light would be at the capstone. I think light is frequency and vibration and light. These are all things that are so incredibly important to the human body. And it's my contention that light is the number one thing that's causing people to become sick or to become healthy. And it's our disconnection with light and frequency. If you want to learn more about light, listen to the shows that we've done with Adam Bergstrom. He's talked about that, and our most recent show, I think it was episode 466 that we did with, what was his name, Dr. Jack Cruz. We talked with him, and there was a lot about light, and I don't know. It's just my suspicion that the further we become disconnected from light, the sicker we become. Like that study I was mentioning, I should find that study in Australia of those office workers and skin cancer. And, you know, we have this thing in our culture, in our society, where we demonize the most simple, basic health practices that we could ever do, because industry's behind it, and industry is going to, you know, you go to any dermatologist and they're going to tell you to stay away from the sun. And, you know, obviously everything is in proportion to, you know, the person's need in the moment, right? I mean, certain people need some more sun than others, like we talked about on the show. But, you know, they're going to try to sell you sunscreen and sell you fear so that you keep coming in to see them. Because without fear, you know, if they said, yeah, go in the sun, and this is how you should do it, you know, based on your skin type and your lifestyle, and, you know, you don't need to come and see me, and, you know, that would never work, because they got to keep people coming back. And so, you know, something like light is so important, and it's free. You just got to go outside. All you got to do is go outside, right? I mean, it's amazing how simple it all really is. You know, by simply going outside, like I was sharing on that episode with Dr. Jack Cruz, you know, I've been doing all of my workouts outside these days. And so I'll go in the backyard and without my shoes on, and I've got some weights that I've got. I got the Power Block dumbbells. Those are available in our store. You know, you can get those through our store on Amazon. And I got some adjustable kettlebells, and I've got some other equipment. I just take it out in the backyard, take off my shoes. I don't wear sunglasses. And what's really cool is that I'm able to breathe fresh air, for one, right? So I'm not getting this. So just by breathing that air is doing two things. A, it's giving me all of the electrons and the negative ions and all of the good properties that are in air, right? Assuming the air is not, you know, polluted. But I'm getting all of those things that we can't measure in science, that is natural, and I think that's probably 99% of what makes us healthy, are things that science can't measure, but things that make complete, total sense. So I'm getting all of that by breathing bacteria. You know, I'm getting all of that by breathing that good wild air out in the backyard. But then I'm not breathing stale indoor air by being inside. So I'm doubling up just on the air I'm breathing, right? Then on top of that, I'm building vitamin D. I'm getting direct sunlight, getting all the frequencies of the sun, with no sunglasses on and no sunscreen on, and with no shirt on. So I'm allowing my body to be exposed to, you know, more of my body to be exposed to all of the different frequencies of the midday sun, right? So I'm getting all of that, and my body's creating vitamin D. And then on top of that, I'm grounding myself. So I'm getting that perfect electromagnetic radiation being emitted into the earth, from the earth into my body. So my body's circadian rhythms recalculating. And on top of that, I'm exercising, which is helping me, you know, is helping my health and making my body stronger. And on top of that, I'm also usually, I like to do things in terms of, I just like to stack a bunch of things and do a bunch of things at one time. So usually when I'm working out, I'm listening to something stimulating and fun, and usually like a health podcast or something like that. So I'm getting all these amazing benefits from working out. Whereas before, I used to work out in the gym, and I could not do that. Working out in the gym, I did it for, gosh, how many years? From probably about 19 years old, 18, 19, all the way to 40, 41. So, I mean, that's a good 21 years of working out inside. And I think my health would be a lot better had I been outside. So in any event, it's so simple, right? Going outside and getting sunlight and getting fresh air. I mean, how simple is that? And it's free, it costs nothing. And I think that the more we get into, you know, correct our mindset and our frame of thinking around the most basic free practices you could do to take care of your health, I think we're going to be much better served. much better served. I think it's so important to just do the free basic things. And on top of that, just thinking positive thoughts or meditating. It doesn't cost anything to meditate. You could do that right now. You can do that, when you get home or wherever you are right now. You can go back home and meditate. It costs you nothing. The products in our store cost a little bit of money because they're tools to help advance that process of getting healthier. But, a lot of the things you could do without having, buying any of the products in our store are simply free. Reading a book, meditating, going for a run, exercising outside, not wearing your sunglasses. All this stuff is free and easy. So I'm just really, really fascinated because I was thinking the other day, is it possible that all of our disease is coming from this fractionated light that we're getting and lack of lack of exposure to regular full frequency, full spectrum light? Because you got to admit, over the last 30, 40 years, we've gone from living outside most of the time to living inside most of the time. And on top of that, with the advent of iPads and cell phones and computers and things, this is causing a real issue with blue light. If blue light is really as damaging, especially after sunset, as they say it is, then, it's a real problem. Now you have little kids looking at computer screens and iPads and things, and it really concerns me as to, what's going on. A lot of people think that Steve Jobs, his cancer was a direct result of just being completely disconnected from outside light and staring at blue screens his whole career. So I don't know. Steve Jobs is a weird guy because, he has these really inspirational and motivational quotes, but then on the same token, he's known for, this really oppressive workplace environment where he expected people to have that freakishly entrepreneurial drive and dedication to work, 20 hours a day like he did. And he was just like a taskmaster, apparently. But then you have all these motivational quotes too. And then at some point in his career, he was a fruitarian and went to India to meditate. So I don't know what was the case with that guy, but a lot of people speculate that his cancer's derived from his constant staring into computers with blue light. So I don't know. No one will ever know. A lot of times we don't even know in living people where their cancer came from. Most people consider it or think it to be a spiritual, emotional issue at the core, and then physical issues, obviously teeth, detoxification, chemicals, and stuff like that. But then you have the light component too. And, I think that light is something that we really, really need to get on top of, man. We really need to start spending time outside more and more and more, as much as we possibly can, I think. I've been really, really focused on this ever since that show with Dr. Cruz, 466, really changed my thinking, because I knew about all this stuff, but it just I didn't understand the importance of it and how powerful it really was. I didn't understand how much it really affected me and how, you know what I mean? Like a lot of these things where we talk about on our show, it's like certain things, the guest could make it sound like it's really important, but in the overall scheme of things, it may not be that big of a deal. Like, for example, a good example of that could be like filtering your water, right? We have guests come on here saying that there's chlorine, chloramine, there's chemicals, pharmaceutical, homeopathic pharmaceutical residues of chemotherapy and birth control pills and things like that in our drinking water. And unless you filter your water, you're going to die and you're getting exposed to fluoride, which could all be true, right? I don't know. But I feel like there's a couple layers above that, a couple rungs above the ladder above that. And I think that's where light comes in, because, we are light beings. I think that this is going to make a profound impact in all of our health if we just started implementing better lighting strategies in your house. One of the things we do when the sun sets is we just turn off most all our lights. And I wear those orange glasses, and what I'm going to do is exchange all of our internal lights inside of our house to those orange ones, and that would be a step in the right direction. I have the flux, like I said, and I think it's basically what we need to do as a culture if we really want to get healthy and get to the bottom of our health issues is we need to return to nature. That's what we need to do. We need to learn about what it would be like to live out in the forest and off the land and mimic that as much as possible in our modern lifestyle. And that's part of the work that Daniel Vitalis does with Surthrival. I love his products over there, by the way, and they're in our store if you're interested. But Daniel Vitalis is, he's doing that work of reconnecting with land and bringing nature back into the home. And that's his whole rewilding theme and his podcast and all of that. And so I really think we need to get back to those roots, but do it in a very creative, modern way. Because, to be honest with you, not everyone, and us included, we're not going to, become hippies and do all these weird things. And, you know what I mean? Like, we just need to start bringing plants into the home, or start getting air filters, or start grounding yourself while you're in your home, and start, understanding lighting and, when you're in your home and not sitting so much. I'm standing right now. And so there's a lot of strategies of bringing the wild nature back into our home that I think is so important. And lighting is just one of them. So I didn't even know that Leanne was going to do that with the coupon code. It is Extreme25. So she said that the coupon code would be good until the end of February. It is February 3rd today, 2017. So if you're listening during the month of February and you want to buy one, we don't get any, there's no, financial anything between us. But she just wanted to offer a coupon code for her listeners. For our listeners. So, I hope you pick up one of her items, and, I'm going to look more into them myself, and, I might look into getting one because they sound really, really cool. I've looked at a number of different LED red light devices on the internet, and I don't know. I like what she's doing. Something resonates there with me. So, yeah, fascinating stuff, man. I'm just so fascinated by light and how light affects us. Wouldn't it be so ironic? Wouldn't it be so strange if we found out that all of our diseases and health problems were directly related to light? All this time we're thinking it's food and it's chemicals and it's a sedentary lifestyle. What if it was just light? How simple would that be? That'd be so crazy, wouldn't it? That'd be just so nuts. That would be so crazy. It wouldn't surprise me either. I tell you, it wouldn't surprise me because I'm just learning about it. Start doing some Google research or some YouTube research and start learning red light therapy or whatever. Watch the videos from Leanne on her different talks and podcasts she's been on. And start learning, even from other people too, about how important light is. And it makes sense. It really does make sense. Yeah. So many things to work on, isn't there? There's so many different ways. We still have to incline our bed. We did a whole show on inclined bed therapy and how beneficial that is. So we're going to do it for a while and see what we think and keep looking into the research. I want to make sure that, let's see, we got an email in from Jean. Let me just make sure this is correct because she was saying, how come I was so overly not pessimistic, but overly skeptical about... Jean's awesome too. She's a fan of Daniel Vitalis, but she wrote in on Facebook, which by the way, if you write in on Facebook, it's challenging for me. I would much prefer if you sent me an email. But she says, let's see, you seemed a bit overly skeptic about inclined bed therapy at the end for any reasons and you maybe don't mention or heard different about. Next time you could also compare this to the work of Sydney Ross Singer, whom you had on. Yeah, so, Gene, I'm not skeptical. I just want to look more at the science of these things because one of the things that's really important to me is if we do things that, like, it's one thing to, like, for example, it makes more sense to me, let me think of a good example, in terms of being skeptical about something. I'm not skeptical. I just want to make sure I make the right decision, and I'm not fearful. I'm not afraid of trying things at all, but one of the things that I'm I guess, concerned with is making a lifestyle decision for many, many years, multiple years that ends up later on being debunked or proven to be false, right? So, like, for example, right now I'm in a standing desk and it makes sense that we would stand. And so we did this whole show with Dr. Kelly Starrett about standing and the dangers of sitting. That was probably a couple shows ago. This is 508. That was probably like 504, 505. And it makes sense because we were never meant to sit for that long period of time, right? For 8 hours a day. It's just not natural. But also, standing is dangerous too if you don't move. So the whole thing that Kelly gets into is it's about movement, not necessarily a standing desk. So it's not standing versus sitting. It's more moving versus not moving. So the problem with sitting is that it puts you into almost like a cast where your range of motion and your ability to move is severely restricted because you're sitting, right? Standing, you can't stand for more than a little amount of time before you start fidgeting because, it's uncomfortable to stand. So that makes sense to stand. But, in terms of the inclined bed therapy, if we're doing that for 8 hours a day, what if it was proven in 5 or 10, 20 years from now that we, after we do this for 30 years, that, instead of being inclined with your head up, you're supposed to be sleeping with your feet elevated a little bit, like 3 or 4 inches instead of the other way around, and then all of a sudden you did something for 8 hours a day for a third of that time, those 20, 30 years, 10 of those years you were damaging yourself. So that I'm not skeptical as much as I am just want to make the right decision if I'm going to be doing something for huge blocks of time, and sleeping is a third of your life. So I just want to make sure that the decision is correct. And it sounds to me from the research I've been doing, I have yet to do it for the full 6 inches, but it sounds to me from the research I've been looking into that it is incredibly beneficial. So I just like to be cautious when it comes to, if it comes down to like, doing a power shot like Agenus Vonderplanus talks about to reset your hormones, blending up thyroid and blending up liver and blending up lung and brain of a cow and drinking that with raw goat's milk with, some honey to reset your hormones and your thyroid gland for the rest of your life. It's a one-time thing. If it's damaging, it's no big deal, right? But if you're going to do something for a third of your life, that's a big deal. So you just got to make sure you're careful about things that are protocols that you follow for, a long portion of your life that happen to take up many hours in your day. So it's like following a diet too. If you follow the wrong diet for 30 years, that's a real problem. So you want to make sure that you're taking that Icarus middle path, not too high, not too low, and following exactly the right kind of diet for you. So that's kind of just my thoughts on that. But in any event, I really think she's onto this light therapy thing. And I'm curious if you try it, if you get her, what do you call it? Biophoton. What does she call that? The Rejuvenator, I think it's called. I'll put a link in the show page. Let's see. If you get her, Red Juvenator. That's pretty cool. How funny. RED and then Juvenator. JUVENATOR. Yeah, if you get one of these machines, let me know what you think of it, if you like it, if it's helping you. I'd be curious to know how you use it and the benefits you've gotten from it. Sounds really, really fascinating to me. If we, maybe one day we'll pick one up and talk about it on the show. All right, guys, that was long enough show. I hope you enjoyed it. We really appreciate you guys, and we appreciate your support. And for those of you that have been helping us on Amazon, we really appreciate it. We've set up a kind of a cool new way of allowing you guys to support us on Amazon, which is cool because a lot of times people don't remember to go through our link, and it's hard to remember because you want to buy something on Amazon, you just want to go there directly and get it. But anytime you go on Amazon, you can support someone if they are affiliates of Amazon. So just remember that. And so we set up a little link on the right-hand side of our website. It says Amazon, and it's a banner. But below that is some text that says drag me to your desktop. And if you drag that bit of text to your desktop, it'll create an icon on any computer. And then if you just rename that icon Amazon.com or something so you know what it is on your desktop, that icon, or just rename it EHR Amazon or something so you remember it's supporting Extreme Health Radio. But then all you got to do is use that icon every time you make a purchase. And that goes through our affiliate link. So you never have to remember Extreme Health Radio. All you got to do this is one time only, and it supports us. And we are so thankful for you guys doing that, man. It's been huge. And, your support just means the world to us. So thank you. Really appreciate it a lot. And, I don't know, it just makes us feel good when we know we can continue doing this work and offer the shows for free. All 500 plus shows for free. We appreciate your support. It really means a lot. And we're going to be adding some more products to our store soon too. So keep up to date with that. In our store, we have, blenders, juicers, rebounders, the Qigong course that I do every day. What else do we have? We have, the sauna, of course. We've got, all kinds of really, really cool stuff in our store. So make sure to check if you're going to make a purchase of some product online. Make sure to check, ozone generators, all kinds of cool stuff. So our store has lots of really cool items and cutting edge stuff, and we're going to be adding to that. So thank you for thinking of us, and checking out our store every now and then to see if there's anything you might want to check out. We appreciate that a lot. And I want to do a special thank you to those of you who have supported us on Patreon and on PayPal. We really appreciate you guys. We just got 2 new donations for $5 each a month on PayPal, and you can donate on Patreon as well. And that's just a way to support us on a monthly basis on Patreon. You can put a limit on Patreon, so it's per podcast. So if you want to send $1 or $2 per podcast, we do about 12 a month. So if you want to do 25 cents a show, that would be $4 a month. And you can put a cap, in case we do 15 or 20 shows in a month, you never pay more than whatever your cap is. So, and Patreon's cool too, because it allows you to, if you have a Facebook account, you can sign up and, do that. It just comes out of your account once a month and, at the beginning of the month. So if you sign up right now, it's not going to take any money out until the first of the month. And so, it's a great way to support us. And we thank you so much. You guys are just so cool. Man, we have the best listeners ever. I'm just super humbled by you guys. I really am. And, the emails that come in, are just awesome. And, I'm just so thankful for you guys. It's really cool to be doing this kind of work and helping, people wake up and, realize that their health is important. It's just, I don't know. It just feels good. It really does. It makes me feel good that I'm doing my part in the world to help people. And, so people can realize they have hope. That's one of the biggest things, is for people to have hope, right? So I just feel blessed, and you guys are awesome. So thank you. Let me give you a really quick update on our upcoming shows, so where are we now? Friday? Let's see. Yeah, Friday, February 3rd, 2017. Oh, cool. We got Carrie Gray coming up on Green Insurance. If you guys are interested in alternative health insurance, we just signed up. So funny. It takes us so long to do things. We had her on a couple years ago, and I swear it's taken us 2 years or 3 years to sign up for Green Insurance. So we're going to be talking about that. Green Insurance is an awesome an awesome program. At least I think it is. So far, it looks really promising. And I like everything they have going on. I haven't used them yet, and I haven't, really tested them and see. But it sounds really great on paper, and we just signed up to Green Insurance. So she's going to be on Monday talking about alternative health insurance. Then we have Shan Jones. We're going to be talking about natural or good skincare solutions, healing for eczema, psoriasis, rosacea, and acne. So that'll be good. What else do we got? Friday, we've got Dr. Cass Ingram. We'll be talking about colds and flus. And then we have Dr. Christine Horner. I forget. We have so many good people coming up. Melissa Hennig. She'll be talking about the raw paleo diet. Dr. Zach Bush, glyphosate, and gut health. So that'll be interesting. He's got a product called Restore that looks really interesting. So anyway, we have a lot of cool free shows going on. And if you want to keep up to date with everything we have going on, the best way to do that is to text the word Get Healthy to 33444. That is Get Healthy to 33444. And Get Healthy is all one word. And it's 33444. And you can sign up to our newsletter right up there on your phone right now. And we'll send you a bunch of bonuses and audio program about how I overcame my food addictions, which is by using primarily one strategy over a long period of time that would just completely change my cravings forever, like reset everything. So I do that, and I send you a book that sells for $20 on Amazon called Lessons from the Miracle Doctors. And you can get access to that and keep up to date with all of our shows by signing up to our newsletter. Again, text the word Get Healthy to 33444. Couple other things to note. We have the next So I've been helping Marcus Freudenman. If you're unfamiliar with him, we did a whole show on ozone therapy on episode 490, I think, and how ozone therapy is incredibly powerful and, amazing for helping the body heal. And the cool thing about ozone is there's a million different ways you can apply it to your body. You can put it in women could do vaginal ozone. You could do rectal ozone insulfations. You could do ozone in your ear, in your nose. You could drink ozonated water, put ozonated oils on your skin, and he's got this really great ozone generator. But he's been teaching webinars about how to use it and what it's good for. And so we're done with the ozone webinars. I'll put a link to the replays of those webinars. Let me make a note of that. Ozone webinar replay link. So if you want to get access to that, we'll put it on this show page. And so the next thing he's going to do is hypothermia. Hyperthermia, sorry, I should say. So we're going to be doing that, and he's going to do some webinars on PEMF and all kinds of cool stuff. So we're going to be really, really diving into a lot of cool things he's doing. We do those every Tuesday. He asked me to come on and moderate the questions and ask the questions and all that good stuff. And so I just like what he's doing, so I join him every Tuesday at 4 p.m. Pacific time. So if you want to join that, I'll put a link on this show page for that too. So, any other things? Oh, another thing I should tell you really quickly. If you know of anyone who's dealing with cancer, Chris Wark, who was just on the show, episode must have been 507, was just on the show, and he has a program called Square One. And I highly recommend, Chris is an awesome dude. For those that don't know, Chris was diagnosed with stage 3C colon cancer, I think about 10 years ago. And he runs a really popular blog called chrisbeatcancer.com. And we had him on the show recently, episode 507 for the second time. And he's got a really great program called Square One. And it walks people through a series of programs and courses and videos of what to do for your health if you've ever been diagnosed with cancer. Let me make a link, Square One. And so I wanted to tell you that's going on right now. It actually starts right now. The whole thing is going to be available for free, I think from February 15th to like February 22nd or something like that, 2017. So it's something like that. It's like a week or 10 days maybe. And, so I want to make that available to you if you guys are interested in that. I'll put a link to that on this show page. extremehealthradio.com/508 is this particular show page. All right. Cool, guys. We love you all so much. You're amazing. You guys are awesome. I love you guys. It's just awesome. So I'm just so glad and grateful that you're in our life and I'm in your life in some capacity. You take me along with you on your trips or your workouts or your runs or whatever. Man, what a humbling thing that is to be, for people to take us with them. So we thank you. You are amazing. So stay tuned for more shows. Lots of cool stuff coming up. Don't forget to text the word Get Healthy to 33444 if you want to sign up to our newsletter so you don't miss any of our upcoming shows. And this show is episode 508. So that is extremehealthradio.com/508. And you can find the links to our sponsors. You can find the links to that Square One program, as well as the ozone webinar and the upcoming webinars and stuff like that Marcus is doing. All right. All right, guys. Love you so much. We'll catch you guys on the next show.
No material on this blog is intended to suggest that you should not seek professional medical